Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had the chance to exist in the DC universe. Living a new life in another reality, Naruto now must handle a lot of complications of him interacting with various heroes, villains, and anti-heroes. How will things go with them interacting with a nobody? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard! Chapter 16, A Creature of the Night. It has been a rather cloudy night so far, as it was hard to see the full moon that was supposed to be shown. The only source of light that could be seen in the city were from the buildings, the cars, and the GCPD blimp hovering above several miles above the city. The blimp in question is out on patrol as two officers were doing their business and checking in as usual. This is Gotham Air 1 reporting in. Things are actually quiet for once. One of the officers said into the radio for the usual check-in procedures. Blip. Hey, did you see that? The second officer said to get his partner to look at him funny. See what? I got a blip. Right here. The second pointed to the generalized spot on the radar. It just ghosted across my screen. I didn't see anything. But it was there. The officer said before peering out of the window. It must be right below us. Whoosh. See? I just saw it, Mark. The same officer said as he pointed towards the distance of the dark silhouette his eyes caught onto. There, what is? It looked like bat wings? Bat wings? Mark questioned before a slight thought came to mind. Could be Batman flying over Gotham Frankie for his patrols or whatever he does on most nights. But this high up? Mark hummed and thought for a moment or two before speaking to Frank again. Then take us through those clouds just in case. Frank did just that by pulling the controls to make the blimp go higher and higher into the sky, passing through several clouds before breaking through the higher atmosphere. With the moonlight shining upon them now, this gave the two officers a better chance of seeing things. Sorry, Frank, the one officer said as he kept on looking, seems that nothing is up here. But I swear I saw it, Mark. Something was definitely flying up here. If the two had looked further down, they would have seen the darkened silhouette officer Frank had seen, latching itself to the metal hull on the bottom before it released its grip and plummeted from such a height. With the speeds it was reaching, it soon opened itself up to reveal batwings as it glided and soared through the night sky. No one was ever the wiser from some pedestrians seeing the slight shadow come across them and assumed it was Batman. As the mysterious figure soared through the air, it started changing directions with its destination in mind, Phoenix Pharmaceuticals. In the building's darkened halls, a security guard was making his rounds for the night. With most evening/graveyard shifts, one would need something to entertain yourself so you don't lose that much interest in your job. Some would draw sketches, some music play in a low volume to not fully distract them from work, others dance, etc. For this one security guard, he had a tape recorder in his hand and was fiddling around with it. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. The security guard said into his recorder before speaking in a better tone of voice. And you too can dream to be a high-paid radio personality in your spare time. Just like me. So, call the Gotham Institute of Broadcast Arts. He stated before chuckling a little. Oh yeah, that sounds so much better than the last run. Bang rattle. Hearing the sudden noise coming from behind him, made the guard quickly pull out his gun with his recorder in the other hand. He slowly made his way towards the source of the noise to see if anyone was trying to break into the place. When getting to the designated room, he quickly went in with his gun aimed to be greeted with nothing. Nothing at all. Phew. For a second there I thought something was in here. The guard said as he walked further in to see if anything seemed amiss. Might have been my imagination. I need to stop taking too many of these graveyard shifts. Starting to get to me. If the man was paying any attention, he would have noticed a slight light be reflected from the ceiling. It slowly came down and landed onto the office floor with a low thump that ended up alerting the guard. He turned around to see where the source came from and saw a large, shadowy figure, walking ever closer to him. From what he could barely make out as it got close enough seemed monstrous. Ah! Get away! The guard screamed as a deafening roar reached his ears, making him bring his hands to the sides of his face to hopefully cover up most of the sound. "Rrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr In the process, the guard had let go of the tape recorder in his hand, which skidded across the floor to stop underneath the nearby desk. In a brief moment of courage, the guard aimed his gun and fired upon the figure several times. Bang 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 bang. But he didn't know if they were successful or not. It didn't matter in the end as a scuffle ensued in the one office with yelling and screaming before a chair was thrown, break the nearby window in the process. More yelling and screaming could have been heard if someone were nearby. No! No! What are you doing? The guard screamed out as he was lifted above the ground and carried off to the nearby, broken window. Let me go! Let me go! Very poor choice of words, Mr. Security Guard. Very poor choice of words. The guard yelled as he was thrown out of the building and plummeted towards the nearby river with a loud splash. Unknown location. With the sun setting in the distance, two individuals are bathed in its warm, colorful wonder. Seems so much better to see from far away in its picturesque appearance, but coming closer to the scene seems hard to see without being moved. As the two people are facing each other with one holding a duffel bag over his shoulder, while the other had a pleading look on her face. Do you really have to leave? She asked with tears welling up in her eyes. He looked at her with his strong, caring gaze, showing that his actions are never wavered. Not wanting to back down with what he must do. I promised. The people I love are waiting. He responded with a firm voice. I don't understand. Not at all. But please take care of yourself. He saw her shaking, trying to contain her emotions from spilling out. He placed his bag onto the ground and closed the distance to bring her into his warm embrace. His strong heart beating against his chest made her heart slowly sink with his in tandem. Of course, I'll come back to you. Even if you don't promise to wait. I'll return knowing you'll be here. She looked up with her pure, blue eyes to study his bright hazel ones. With the sun reflecting off of each of them made their appearance more beautiful for the other. Their lips were slowly being drawn closer together as to hopefully savor a kiss that they won't experience for God knows when. Then come back to me, Naruto. It's a promise of a lifetime, Harleen. Their lips inched closer until... Beep 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 beep. Gah! The blonde woman woke up suddenly when her alarm clock blared by her nightstand. Panting heavily with the breath she supposedly held during her sleep as she tried to get fresh air into her lungs. Once calming down, she turned off her alarm as she raked her hand through her hair while trying to process what she had just seen in her dream. It felt so real. The intern muttered as she placed her fingertips towards her lips to feel a hollow feeling like it seemed to be missing something, but what? She then looked towards her first edition copy of Loveless by the nightstand and recollected her thoughts of what she could try to remember from that dream. Mentally comparing from the one passage she read in the book to what she saw in her dream before realizing the differences. Those last bits were from my subconscious? She shook her head, trying to get those obscene thoughts out of her head. There was no way she could really like Naruto in such a way. There wasn't. But every time she seemed to deny such a thing brought back that hollow feeling in her heart. He's been her friend since she first started out at Arkham. Unknowingly helping her out through so much both in and out of work. Making her feel so happy after so long, after that night. The one night that things went downhill on her self-esteem and sent her into a dark dark place. But, somehow, Naruto had been able to drag her out of that pit and help ease her pain. His comforting warmth helped ease the pain she has kept hidden from the world. Naruto became a great friend to rely on. But after what happened at Arkham might end up changing things between them. She apparently fainted after hearing from Naruto confessing that Pam is allowing him to be in an open relationship with other women. It is very scandalous on what she heard, even though there was a reason behind it with Pam being sterile/barren. But the thing that possibly got things more complicated was the statement that there was an impression of both she and her friend have feelings for each other. It's completely ridiculous, right? Once out of her odd fainting spell, the intern denied such a thing and didn't wait for either of them to talk to her as she ran out of the asylum. She unintentionally made a spectacle out of it, but she didn't care as she couldn't face or hear them at all. She just needed to figure things out. It didn't help that Naruto had been calling and leaving voicemails for the past few days, but she hasn't even bothered to listen and respond to them. She assumed that her friend wanted to explain things to her, but fear got the better of her and she didn't want to listen to his kind and caring voice. The blonde wanted to, but for some reason she couldn't play the messages. She just needed time to sort all of this out. She just needs something else to focus on. She just needs a distraction from her frustration. So, after making herself a nice omelet to help start her day, she went into her daily exercises to start the day. Even though she is no longer into gymnastics, doesn't mean that she wants to be out of practice. Harley does a lot of stretches and her typical workout routine consisting of push-ups, sit-ups, squats, handstand push-ups, raised push-ups, weight training and several other exercises that she has done for years. Harley was pretty much done with her routine when all of a sudden, ding dong. Groan, it better not be her again. Harley said as she got up from her floor and wiped off some sweat off of her person. Knock knock. Narrowing her eyes a little, she marched up towards her door as she loudly spoke out. Mrs. Fernandez. I already told you I haven't seen your cat. When opening the door, she had expected to see her neighbor. Except she was greeted with, I haven't seen him either. Naruto said as he looked at the hallway of the apartment floor. Or is the cat a girl? Was I being misogynist just now? Or is it misogynistic? Never really knew on that. And Naruto? The intern said in surprisement as she didn't expect seeing him here. What are you? How did you find my apartment? Well, I remembered some of our previous chats on some places you liked going towards that was near your home. Took some bit of digging to eventually narrow things down. After that, I just ended up chatting with some people nearby that were your neighbors. He said to her, which was partially true. The publisher actually broke into Arkham last night to find Harley's address. It was just that he had a tough time narrowing things down to several blocks and needed to get the last bit of info from her workplace. Not that she would ever need to know that tidbit. But why are you here? Her response changed his mood drastically as he went from slightly cheerful to a worried one. Can we talk, Harley? Not wanting to have any of her neighbors see or hear this conversation, she ushered him inside before closing the door behind him. Taking a look around, he couldn't help but say something. Nice place you got here, Harley. Lots of space. Her larger-than-standard studio-styled apartment had a nice fixture of decent furniture to fit with the style and theme she had going on with the decorations to lighten up the residence. There was an elongated couch separating the kitchen from the living room to help make it be a wall of sorts. There's even a hallway, with the opening connected to the living room, which lead towards the bathroom and her bedroom. Mind telling me why you're here, Naruto? She asked as she crossed her arms over her chest. You haven't responded to my calls and I was getting worried. Even checked in with Pam and Selena if you had spoken with them, but they said that you haven't. He said to her as he scratched the back of his head. So, I wanted to see if you were okay. Well, I am, so you could go now. Can you please listen to me, Harley? Harley looked at him for a few brief moments and just sighed in response to his pleading look. Fine, what do you need to say to me? Naruto released a small breath as he felt a bit better that she would be willing to listen to him now. Man, I thought this was going to be easier to say. He thought before speaking to her. Look. I'm sorry on what happened the other night and I didn't expect things to go the way as it should. That's a complete understatement. She said as she rolled her eyes at him with her frustration coming back. The intern then glared at him for a moment before opening up her mouth. If you possibly thinking that there's something between us, then you got another thing coming, Buster. So, say what you need to say and go. He felt hurt when hearing this, but guessing on how she is feeling he can understand what she's possibly coming from. But that's the thing, Harley. I don't know if there is anything between us. The intern quirked up an eyebrow as she didn't expect hearing such a thing from him. Excuse me. I mean, I just don't know if I think I do. What do you mean exactly? Harley asked with her curiosity seemingly baited now for what he has got to say. Sigh, it's just that. It's just that I consider you a great friend of mine, Harley. For as long as I've known you, I admired how hard you worked when wanting to get to your current position, with what you wanted to truly get. Hell, I know I worked hard with what I wanted to have in my life and it's not easy like everyone else. I even guess that I have known you long enough to know that you need to have someone special in your life. The publisher stated, getting a little reaction out of her on the last bit as one of her hands tightened around her arm a bit. So, when Pam told me that she assumed that you have feelings for me and vice versa, I didn't know what to do. Should I go after or not and possibly risk what we currently have? That's what I thought. Harley and I had been going over that for quite some time now. Sure. I think you're very beautiful with how I see you the majority of our time together. With your angelic look of yours, that shade of blue your eyes have that seems to sparkle a little when something interesting comes across your field of vision, and I think your laugh is very cute. But that's just putting you on this sort of pedestal. I think, and makes me wonder if I like the image of you or what you really are. So I don't know if you should be me since I don't want to risk our friendship, Harley. He thinks I'm beautiful? She thought with her fighting down the blush that tried to come across her cheeks. But she had to bite her inner cheek to keep that feeling down with wanting to hear more of this. Luckily for her, somewhat, he didn't see this reaction as he gained a downcast look and didn't look at her in the eyes at this point. I've learned that the hard way when I was younger of going after this one classmate I had a crush on. And from what I tried to do to please her, had hurt our friendship in various aspects. I first started crushing on her when we were younger, with me thinking that she was very pretty and I wanted to gain her attention. I did become her friend and from there I sought out her feelings, but she was interested in another classmate of ours. The guy wasn't all that great at all and she had deserved better, along with the other girls that were fawning over him. There is, in fact, a whole list that I could tell you about him on those reasons, but I don't want to get sidetracked on this. My friend had fawned over him too much that I just wanted to appease her and did what I could to bring him back to her, but in the end, he didn't even bother at all with him, so focused on other things. Even years later, she was still hung over him that I still don't even realize why she likes the guy after all of the bullshit he pulled. It even got to the point that she up straight lied to me, that she liked me instead to help comply on this one thing going on at the time. Her friend said as his tone of voice had a hint of anger towards the end. Why does that sound familiar? The blonde thought before her eyes glanced towards her bookshelf, towards her copy of Ninja Storm. Was that part of the story actually from his life? He calmed down a bit as he noticed that he was starting to get angry when remembering the time Sakura was chasing after Sasuke. So, he shook his head a little before continuing on with his explanation. So, when that happened, the pedestal I had for her broke and my friendship with her was over. We still worked together before I left home, but I considered things between us to be done. There was nothing that could be done to fix things between her and I, and everyone else we knew the same thing. So, what I'm trying to say here, Harley, is that I would like to bury the hatchet and maybe move on. I would like to still be friends with you and get to know you better, since I think there's more to you than I know about, and vice versa. You've done so much for me and Pam, and I want to help you out in return for the three of us. I just don't want to lose and drive you away. But if it's too late, then I'll be fine to leave and we don't have to speak to each other ever again." Once he said his piece, he walked around her to get towards the door, but was stopped when he felt Harley grab a hold of his arm. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I really am," Harley said to him as he looked at her now with her calm expression. "I didn't know on all that and wished I could have heard it sooner. I was just shocked and confused on what was going on, that I needed time to myself. I ignored the only friends that I have right now and it hurts knowing all that. I was just afraid of things moving too fast and I didn't want to get into a relationship too soon. After my last one." "Harley, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to," Naruto said as he realized that it was going to end up in that territory right now and he didn't want her to feel uncomfortable in voicing it out. Rubbing her arm a little, she looked away from him for a moment before speaking again. "Thanks. I don't know if I want to talk about that right now." "It's okay, Harley. You can tell me when you feel ready," the publisher responded, which made her smile a bit. "So, what do you say? Will you still want to be friends?" "Yeah. I'd like that." When hearing this, he brightly smiled at her and chuckled a little. "Great to hear. So, I was wondering if you're free for the day." "Well, I need to finish getting ready before I head over to work," she said, getting him to nod as asking that bit right off the bat seemed too much at the moment. "While I'm there, I'll go talk to Pam and apologize to ignoring her for the past few days. After that, I'll go see if Selena is still in the hospital and apologize to her as well. Actually, she got out yesterday and is just at her loft now. Then I'll call her while I'm on my way to work," Harley said as she mentally added that to her list for the day. "But as for the next day, I'm off, while I'm free tomorrow. How about I treat you for a day of your choosing on what you want to do? I'll be fine of doing whatever your heart desires, no matter how odd it might be. If you're fine with that." "Are you sure?" she said as she tried to wave off his offering. "I don't want to possibly make things uncomfortable for you." "Nonsense," was his immediate response as he shook his head at her. "Besides, I still owe you something to celebrate with you doing well on Pam's evaluation along with you getting the Magpie case so soon. So doing a full day on whatever you want to do, I'll be fine with paying it and I won't take no for an answer." "If you say so," she drawled out and thought for a few moments before nodding. "Okay then, you got yourself a deal. I would like to have you pick me up tomorrow morning and I'll direct you to what I want to have for my little holiday. Then I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll call when I'm getting close," the former shinobi said before leaving her apartment to do his own things for the day. Chuckles, "Then I can't wait," the intern said to nobody in particular as she went to take a shower. "Because there is a lot that I wanted to do for a while and I intend to do them." Mayor Hill's office. "I didn't authorize this statement, Bullock," Commissioner Gordon said towards his detective with not only them, but District Attorney Harvey Dent being inside of Mayor Hill's office. With what Gordon was referring to was a copy of the Gotham Times laid out on the mayor's desk with the headline of "Gotham Police Declare War on Batman" with a brief statement from the injured security guard saying that a man-bat harmed him. With what has been brought into speculation, made into public fear that Batman is possibly harming innocent civilians and workers now. You could thank Harvey Bullock for that. "Come on, Commissioner," Bullock said as he tried to sweeten his way out of this one. "Someone just asked me a couple of questions and all I did was answering a couple of them. Yet you gave them without my approval," the auburn-haired man said as he shook his head with frustration building up. "If you would have kept quiet, then he wouldn't know that we are moving against him." "Well, I'll find him, Commish. All I just need is a little extra help, if you wouldn't be so kind, Your Honor?" the detective asked the mayor, who was currently thinking current events thoroughly. "What kind of help, detective?" Hill asked, which got a more determined look from the pleasantly plump detective. I want my own tactical squad for the sole purpose of throwing the net over Batman. Hill then brought his eyes towards the other bespectacled man in the room before addressing him. Commissioner? What do you have to say in this? I've already denied the request. Gordon plainly stated with his arms folded across his chest. Nobody's going to make an anti-vigilante task force on my streets. But Your Honor, this nutcase in a bat costume was probably going to snap sooner or later, and I'm surprised we hadn't bothered to do this sooner. Harvey Bullock said to try and defend his part of the argument. Look, I can understand what you're trying to do here, Bullock, but this isn't Batman's MO. Oh yeah? Well, tell that to the guy that was tossed out of the window and landed straight into the hospital. Enough, Hill said in a firm tone. This got things quieted down from the little argument as Gotham's mayor got up from his desk and looked towards the auburn-haired male. I'm sure we could spare a few men, Commissioner Gordon. Detective Bullock does have a good record and a reputation on getting results. To a certain degree, Gordon thought as he mentally rolled his eyes. So, I'll be granting him the task force. But is there anything else you need out of this detective? Yeah, I just want to be sure that the DA's office will give me an airtight case here, sir. Bullock said as he drew his attention to Gotham's DA himself, who was currently sitting a bit away from the group while fiddling around with his old coin. As this was going on, Harvey Dent was mentally going over what has happened recently. Supposedly Batman has gone rogue and attacked a security guard last night. There was no security footage in that part of the pharmaceutical building to fully authenticate the claim. All that the victim had claimed was a bat-like figure or a bat creature attacked him while doing his rounds. It could have been the Dark Knight himself or could have been someone else trying to pin the blame at the bat-themed hero. But things have been pretty confusing with this whole problem that he couldn't make heads or tails on this entire mess. If there was more evidence to this, then the case would end up better handled instead of this. Harvey could dismiss the warrant out for Batman's arrest with how things are like now. But with the DA elections coming up very soon, he'll need as much public support and pull towards his side so he can be elected for another 4 years in office. Once coming down to his decision, he stopped playing with his coin and looked towards the black-haired detective in the room. If you can catch him, Harvey, then I'll send him to jail for you. Chinatown. Coming out of the door to a particular shop in the Chinatown district in Gotham showed the Wayne butler holding a package in his hands while keeping the door open long enough for his ward to step outside of the Asian area. Sounds to me that whatever happened last night was possibly the old corporate sabotage, sir. Alfred said as he walked alongside Bruce. With how this bad imposter got in and out without being fully noticed until the end, could be possible. Even with the 2 very quiet burglaries at the other pharmaceutical companies this week. Looking at the package in his hands, Alfred looked towards Bruce with a skeptical look. Remind me again, sir, but what did we just purchase in there? Hormone-free bovine glands. Bruce stated as he opened the trunk for Alfred to put the case in there. I'm experimenting my need of sleep. Currently it's roughly 4 hours, but I would like to cut that down to 2. Most glands are supposed to be rich in adrenal fluids. Then I'll be glad to blend them up for you before you go to bed, sir. The butler said as he closed the trunk. Though I do wonder if I should even bother to do so, Master Bruce. Given the fact that things have been rather quiet in the city since the attack at the manor, aside from the incident from last night. This could give you the opportunity to actually get a full 8-hour sleep after so long. It has indeed been quiet since the manor incident. When word had somehow gotten out on what happened, handfuls of criminals had the bright idea to not go out at night to not incur Batman's wrath of so many dead security and police officers. It was a small ratio of sorts of how many deaths against the ones that lived. From what was brought up on the reports along with the security footage Bruce had given to the GCPD, after he edited out of him going into his Batcave, that the only people that were killed by those hooded assassins were done as last resort. Many of the assassins had only knocked out other security and police personnel as a priority so that there wouldn't be much of a commotion. The ones that were killed was when things apparently seemed out of their hands. Speaking of dead bodies. With the hooded assassins that committed suicide at Wayne Towers that night, their bodies went missing from the GCPD morgue when the mortician went out to go use the restroom. When he got back, those bodies were gone and security footage was erased to hide on who took them. Bruce guessed that the assassins quickly went in there so that no one would get information on what could be scrounged up on their group. Aside from that mess, crime had seemed pretty low, especially when Vanitas had been making appearances to take care of some thefts, robberies, an attempted rape and murder and several other things. Even Dick called when he heard of what happened and expressed his concerns that he wasn't brought in to help out into his home for nearly a decade. But Bruce told him that things were taken care of in the end. His foster son relented, but grudgingly accepted since he had some issues to deal with at the college and had let off some steam at Bloodhaven by taking care of a handful of crimes there for the past few days. Maybe you're right, Alfred. I could maybe get some more sleep after this bad imposter thing is taken care of. The billionaire stated before a voice called out to him. Mr. Wayne. Small world. Looking behind him, he met the gaze of the blonde therapist that he had helped save with Vanitas at the abandoned hospital. With his usual habit, he looked around her form to see any other detail and came across a bag in her hand. Dr. Ravencroft. He greeted to her with a small smile. Nice to see you again. Don't mind me asking, but what are you doing here? There's a variety of herbal teas I enjoy and I can only procure them from here. The blonde therapist said to him. Don't mind me asking the same thing, but what were you doing? Trying something out, a friend of mine suggested. Bruce lied on the fly with a shrug. He said that it helped relax him more when sleeping and I thought I could possibly need it as of late. The doctor nodded at this to show that she bought the lie. I can understand that given what we had discussed in some of our sessions. To be sure that Bruce wasn't using Dr. Ravencroft for the one-time thing and not let her dwell into suspicion, he had decided to hire her for several other sessions before ending things from there. So, since you're no longer my patient, I think it would be fine for you to drop the doctor. Bethany said as she got closer to the billionaire. Only if you drop the Mr. Owain. Consider it dropped, Bruce. She said to him with a small smile before linking arms with her. Nice car. Thank you. A little extravagant for one, don't you think? Bethany said in a coy tone, making Bruce chuckle in the process with what she had in mind. I'd be more than happy to help give you a lift, Bethany. How about tomorrow night? He knew what she was referring to, dinner, and chuckled at this. Quickly thinking this over, he guessed that he could possibly get this imposter business done tonight and be free tomorrow evening to help out on his Playboy cover. With his mind process done, he nodded and gave his response. Sure, why not? But don't mind me asking, but why tomorrow night? There's a fundraising dinner downtown. 8 o'clock and it's black tie. So don't forget your checkbook. As she said this, she let go of the billionaire's arm and walked away from him with a sway to her hips. Bruce didn't know how long he looked, but when he turned around with a smile on his face, it quickly went into a questioning frown. Reason being. Well, by Alfred's cheeky grin. Don't you say one word. Bruce ordered as he stepped into the back seat of the car. He didn't meet his old friend's gaze after that since he didn't want to add ammo to his gun. What? And to make you more flustered, sir? Mr. Pennyworth rhetorically asked with his grin growing with every passing second. I'm not flustered. Bruce defensively said as he briefly looked up, only to quickly look away. I'm not. Then I'll be sure to put your bovine glands on ice until further notice, sir. Alfred said as he closed the door with a chuckle escaping his lips. Can't wait to tell Maggie about this. Night, Phoenix Pharmaceuticals. Batman had to be extra careful this evening when getting to the pharmaceutical building that was attacked last night. He had to hide his Batmobile outside of city limits and glide his way through most of it without being seen, or else he'll complicate matters. It wasn't easy, but he got there with the building in his sights. He fired his grappling gun towards the building, and before making his way in a zipline motion, he had to tuck in his cape just in case if anyone down below were to glance up. Unknowns to him, a pair of doctors, whom were getting frisky with each other in the late-night hours, caught sight of the bat-themed hero and quickly called the police before making themselves scarce. Once the Dark Knight was successful into entering the building from the rooftop, he navigated his way through the hallways until he was able to find the entrance to the crime scene. It was easy to get the guards stationed there knocked out with his tranquilizer darts that Marva had developed for him. It would leave the targets to be asleep for half an hour until the agents wore off, leaving plenty of time for him to investigate the crime scene. So once inside, Batman had activated the next prototype detective vision in his cowl to start investigating the room. Now then, I should start searching for clues for what occurred in here, the disguised playboy said to himself as he looked throughout the room in his vision. From what reports have stated so far, security guard Marcus Bowden heard a noise and came into this room to investigate. A fight broke out, resulting with a chair going through the window, and in the end, Mr. Bowden was thrown out of it and fell into the river below. Need to know what else occurred here. As his eyes glanced throughout the room, he saw the broken window with the police tape and tarp covering it so the wind wouldn't tamper with the evidence. He got closer to see if either the victim or the imposter had come in contact with the broken glass and moved the tarp away from the edges to see if there was. Unfortunately, there wasn't any at all. He then moved closer to the desk to see a broken vase there, and when he took a closer look, he was greeted with the sight of hair follicles. Knowing this could be as good of evidence he could get, he pulled out a little bag from his utility belt and placed the hairs into it before putting the bag back into its pocket. Batman looked around the desk and found several gun shells on the floor, but didn't see any blood in the room at all. Which was strange since there should have at least been some droplets from the fight. Either the assailant had good body armor or the bullets went into him, but he had contained them as long as he could before leaving. Had to be either one of them, with there being no bullet holes in the surrounding walls. That was when he saw claw marks on the ground around some parts of the room. They were faint to the point that anyone could have missed them, but not him and his analytical eye. One would have to crouch down real low to possibly see them. With his current position, his vision picked up something that was lying under the desk. Once reaching under, he grabbed a hold of it and brought it closer to his face to see that it was a tape recorder. Wonder why this is here? Batman asked as he played the tape. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. A male voice said like he was trying to practice for something. And you too can dream to be a high-paid radio personality in your spare time. Just like me. So, call the Gotham Institute of Broadcast Arts. Chuckle, oh yeah, that sounds so much better than the last run. Batman pressed the pause button and realized that this was Marcus Bowden's recorder. Seems he was practicing for an assignment or an audition for the radio station. Once saying that, he played the tape again. Bang rattle. Paying close attention to the tape this time, Batman closed his eyes to possibly visualize what went on in the room. All that he could hear was the guard's footsteps and him pulling out his gun from its holster before hearing the man's voice again. Phew. For a second there I thought something was in here. Might have been my imagination. I need to stop taking too many of these graveyard shifts. Starting to get to me. It was there when Batman heard a slight thump in the background with some slight scratching sounds and flesh hitting against the floor following after it. Ah! Get away! Marcus screamed out. R-A-A-A-A-A-A-R-H-H-H-H. Once hearing the roar, Batman stopped the tape and slipped the device into his belt before adopting a thinking pose. Seems that whoever this imposter is might be a metahuman. Don't know what that sound might indicate, but I'll need to go through the Bat computer for more details. He would have investigated more, but the sounds of police sirens and helicopter blades started to fill the air just as a searchlight came shining through the office window. I need to get out of here, Batman said as he shut down the detective vision, rushed out of the room and down the several hallways to reach the elevator to try and make his escape. He soon made it towards his goal and grabbed a hold of the openings of the elevator to make his escape. Luckily, he was able to open them wide enough to slip right through, because a handful of SWAT team members came busting through the stairwell. "There he is!" One of the SWAT members called out when the person barely saw Batman slip right through the barriers. "We need to go back down now." "I don't think so." A voice called out from behind, making them turn around to see a cloud of smoke covering the area. In their confusion, each of the SWAT members were being picked off one by one. Shots were being fired in the confusion and all but one SWAT member was left standing. "Where are you?" the man said as he was frantically looking around, as the smoke dispersed, for the man that did this to his fellow teammates. "Here." This made the man quickly turn around, only to be met by a fist to knock him out. "Well, that was rather interesting," Vanitas said as he looked at his handiwork. "Haven't done that to a bunch of cops before." "Thugs, yes, but cops. Well, there's a first for everything." The masked publisher then looked towards the window where the police were stationed and spoke to no one in particular as he phased himself through the floor. "Now I need to help Batman out of this mess." Shots were being fired upon Batman as he was running for cover. When he had gotten out of the elevator shaft, he came across a group of SWAT and they fired their assault rifles when he came into their sights. He had to run through several hallways to hopefully get away from them, but there were too many. Batman eventually got into a room that could possibly help hold him out for a brief moment. And how brief that moment was as a SWAT member came into the room to see if the Dark Knight was there. The officer caught a glimpse of the hero and yelled out a call for help, but the Bat's hand covered his mouth to keep him quiet. That little bit of noise was all that was needed as the other SWAT members heard their teammate and rushed towards the room. Once getting close, they hugged the wall outside of the room, ready for their next course of action. "The Bat's got to be in there, sir," one of the SWAT members said to his commanding officer. All that the man got as a response was his commanding officer to pull out a canister from his belt. "Tear gas, sir? We'll flush him out. So, get your masks on," the commanding officer said as he gave out the order before tossing the tear gas container in there. The container had landed into the room and skipped several times till it came to a stop to a few open containers of flammable gas. Batman and the one SWAT member saw this and panicked. So, Batman grabbed the man and dashed out of the nearby window for their safety. As for the other SWAT members outside of that room, they were ready for the gas to go off. But they didn't expect someone to run towards them, skid to a halt and shoot his hands out towards the sides. They were mildly confused at this and aimed their weapons towards him. "Get down!" Vanitas yelled out as the room ignited and sent a shockwave towards the entire floor as the entire area was sent up in flames. The SWAT members thought they were goners, but saw a shimmering barrier of sorts all around them. Vanitas protected them from the blast. "You guys are complete morons," the disguised publisher yelled at them as he cancelled out the barrier. When that happened, they felt the full heat of the flames. "Didn't you guys even look at the sign?" Vanitas questioned as he pointed towards the flammable hazard sign outside of the room. "Get your men out of here and onto safety. I'll go get your other guys from the upper floor." Vanitas didn't wait for a response for this as ran and focused his powers into a dagger before throwing it upwards. It might have stuck towards the ceiling, but it went phased right through it and landed on top of the upper level. The disguised Uzumaki then focused onto his powers again to focus on the dagger up there, and before he knew it, he warped onto the upper level. It was lucky that the flames haven't reached this level yet, so he went towards the window and broke it to give him a better way of getting the downed men outside. The masked hero had grabbed a hold of the dagger on the ground and focused more power into it before stabbing it on the wall behind him. With what he has planned for this needs a good anchor on both ends. So, with that, he brought out another dagger and did the same thing before throwing it towards the ground below where all of the police were at. He then grabbed a hold of two SWAT members before warping his way towards the dagger outside. "What the devil?" Bullock yelled out as Vanitas somehow appeared near him. At first, he thought the dagger seemed too much when it landed next to him. He went to see what it was, but the other hero of Gotham showed up there with two of his task force members.
"Where the hell did you come from?" "From the building. Where else would have I been?" Vanitas responded in a cheeky tone. "I'll be right back."
This confused the detective and commissioner until he warped away from them for a few moments before coming back with two other SWAT members. This happened a few more times until all of the down members were placed right outside. Even the security guards that were stationed outside of the crime scene that Batman had knocked out.
"Well, here you go. Thanks for the assist, Vanitas." "No problem, Commissioner. Just doing my job," Vanitas said as he summoned his motorcycle in a plume of black and white smoke. "Have a good night, you guys," he told them before revving up his bike and drove off with the sounds of Bullock cursing at the top of his lungs with him wanting to take out Vanitas as well. Next day, Gotham Zoo. "Come on, Naruto," Harley said in a giddy tone as she eyed the next part of the zoo. "I want to see those next." "All right, Harley, I'm coming," Naruto said as he was practically being dragged along by his blonde friend. "We can take as much time as we want. They aren't going anywhere." The Gotham Zoo is the current place the two are at in Harley's little holiday. Since Naruto offered his friend that everything they do for the day will be on him, she decided to exploit it to her heart's content. With some exceptions, of course. Naruto had picked up Harley around 8 in the morning and the first place she wanted to go to was Paula's diner for breakfast. It was a simple meal really that Harley told Naruto that she had called Selena and talked to Pam to tell them that she was sorry on how she acted and not seeing them. She explained everything to them on what she was feeling and they forgave her since it was practically a normal reaction for anyone if they heard such a thing. It made Naruto feel better that Harley was able to explain her feelings on the whole matter. After breakfast, Harley had wanted to go to the arcade of all places. Something about wanting to get rid of some angst she had been building up for quite some time because of work. It was pretty understandable, so the two of them had been playing through several fighting games like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat and Marvel vs. Capcom. That was all before going on to some of the regular arcade games that Naruto had gotten enough tickets to get Harley several plush toys with some left over for him to grab one for Pam and Selena. It was rather cute to see Harley hold a Pirate Fox plushie and gush over it along with the other ones he won her. With the ones he got for Selena and Pam, they were a Rocket Raccoon and Groot plush respectively. Though there was an odd feeling he got when playing at the shooting gallery to get one of Harley's prizes. Naruto had never used a gun before in his life, even a standard arcade one, only used his kunai, daggers and cards as his projectiles. But when he was aiming down on his sights, some purple circles appeared to help pinpoint his target. When he fired, he did it in rapid succession that could have made any sharpshooter green with envy. Naruto wondered what the deal with that was, but he didn't complain since he gotten Harley one of the bigger prizes in the end. Once leaving the arcade, the two went out for lunch before going to Harley's next stop on her list being the Gotham Zoo. It was fun seeing Harley be so energetic throughout the day that it could have been a crime to see her depressed all of a sudden. Reason why he wanted to make his friend happy was to not only help her celebrate all of the good she has done so far, but to also help uplift her spirits that she has been having for quite a while. The two had finished going through several areas of the zoo from the reptile house, the aviary, the aquarium and the insectarium. So now they were going to the regular animals on display from the lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Moving on. When seeing most of the animals here in the cages, Naruto couldn't help but frown a little as part of Selena's environmentalist influence was rubbing off on him. Wanting to get the animals out of their cages and find a way to get them back to their natural habitats. But it wouldn't do them any good. Maybe I should bring Selena here when I get the chance, Naruto thought before he was dragged again by Harley to their next stop. Things were normally going well until they suddenly stopped. Well, more like Harley stopped with Naruto bumping into her. He gained a questioning look as he gazed his sights at his friend.
He then looked towards what she was staring at and saw it was the hyena pen. Or more importantly, what was in the pen? Squeal, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Harley yelled out as she practically gained stars in her eyes. Look at those babies. They are so cute. Naruto let out a small laugh as he saw Harley run up to the pen and gush over how adorable the two hyena babies were while being fed by the animal handler. I have a feeling I now know what your favorite animal is, Harley. Yeah. Always loved them when I was younger. The blonde intern said as the nostalgia kicked in. They were an interesting bunch that I wanted to interact, so when I did a study on them for a school assignment, I felt connected to them in a way. Whenever they are stressed, they would always laugh. Would always give out an interesting sound to get others to recognize each other. Even thought of having one or two as a pet. I can understand that. He commented as he looked at the scene alongside her. I've been meaning to ask this, Harley, but why the arcade and the zoo? I would have expected going out on a shopping spree on books and clothes, but not those. He didn't get much of an immediate response as Harley's eyes were still glued on the hyenas, but one came up a few moments later. Well, the shopping spree did come to mind, but I figured it would have been better if we were actually dating. She said as she started to chuckle a little at the thought before things went on the different route. Cite. But I didn't have much fun in my childhood, with me not having that many friends at all. With how things were like at the time, I eventually had to grow up rather quickly. From working hard so I could try and have a better life once I got older. Had to sacrifice a lot of my free time working on gymnastics and schoolwork so I could get into college. So today, I wanted to at least. Well, hopefully try to at least feel like a kid again. To feel what I had missed all those years ago. Even if it's only for a handful of times, it would at least make me feel better without having to deal with work for the time being. Once that was said, Harley had felt Naruto wrap his arm around her to bring her close to a side hug. She didn't resist at this, as it felt nice to be in his warm embrace. After having the chat yesterday morning, Harley felt better that Naruto wanted to stay friends with her. It really did, don't get her wrong about that, as a large weight came off of her from her worries. But with what went on today, spending time with Naruto as a friend, made her wonder if those feelings she had before went away for a time or started to slowly come back. With not having the feeling of life bringing her down and feeling like a free spirit, Harley felt a bit connected with her inner self. So when Naruto had given her all of those gifts/prizes and made her day all the more wonderful so far, it started making her have this bubbly feeling inside of her. She didn't know if she liked Naruto as just a friend or possibly something more. The Gotham Zoo tour tram will depart in 5 minutes. A voice from the intercom spoke out, breaking the semi-quiet moment between the two. Adventures of Chiroptery in the Bat exhibit will begin in 30 minutes. Well, I think we stayed here long enough, Naruto. Harley said as she broke hold. I would like to maybe get onto that tour if possible. That's fine, Harley. Naruto said with a small smile. It might help wrap up what we haven't seen here today. She nodded before both of them walked together towards their destination. With the density of people moving all around each other, the two had missed seeing Bruce walking right past them. But it didn't matter to them as they were more focused on each other. But you might be wondering why Bruce is at the Gotham Zoo in the first place. Well, let's find out, shall we? He had arrived to the Gotham Zoo a handful of minutes ago as he was making his way through the crowds of people that were attending to attractions for the day. His destination in mind was the Bat exhibit as he had an appointment he scheduled earlier in the day. When he had entered the building, it felt like he was somewhat back at home in his Bat cave. With the dark and brooding feeling he experiences in there every day, minus all of the expensive equipment he has in there. Hello? Bruce called out into the darkness as he navigated his way through the pathways. Anybody home? Dr. March? Yes. Who is it? A man called out, making Bruce turn around towards the source. He was greeted with the sight of an old man, probably in his 50s, with his white hair and short stature.
He was currently wearing a lab coat with a Gotham Zoo name badge on it.
He also wore a typical pair of black pants and shoes with hints of bat guano on them with a white shirt and green tie.
Bruce Wayne. I have an appointment. Called about having a bat problem. Who do you think we are? Pest control?
Dr. March said in a grumpy mood.
No, I just need to dash, yeah. Follow me.
Bruce did just that as he followed the good doctor until coming to a darkened doorway that would have been hard to notice if you weren't used to seeing in the dark.
You donate a few million and you think you own the place.
The doctor mumbled as the two entered the lab.
I understand that I need to analyze something for you.
Yes, doctor, I've been hearing these squeaks coming from my chimney and I've found these in my fireplace. Bruce lied in a cheerful tone as he pulled out the bag with bat hairs from his coat pocket. They look like hairs and I was wondering what you could tell me about them if I have a bat problem or not.
And what is wrong with having bats, Mr. Wayne? And what then? Destroy them like the pests they are?
The man said with an angry hiss.
We won't be able to survive the next evolutionary cataclysm, but bats will. They are survivors, Mr. Wayne. Not pests. You should understand that. Dad. Will you please cut that out?
A female voice called out, getting Bruce to turn around to see a beautiful woman in her mid to late 30s. Shoulder-length blonde hair with curls throughout its length.
She wore a standard lab coat with her name badge present over the purple attire she had underneath.
She also wore a pair of red-rimmed glasses to cover up her green eyes. I hope that Mr. Wayne means you no disrespect.
Of course, not Miss. Mrs. Actually, more like Dr. Dr. Francine Langstrom.
The blonde greeted the billionaire.
You had actually spoke with my husband earlier on the phone. Why yes. Yes, I did.
Like calling on the devil and he shall appear, Francine's husband had walked into the room. He appeared to be around his wife's age with being a head taller than her. His light brown hair was combed back to make his face appear longer with his high cheekbones and square-like jaw.
Oh, Mr. Wayne. Good to see you.
Sorry that I'm late, had something else to take care of. Her husband said as he came up and shook Bruce's hand.
Kirk Langstrom. So did you bring the sample you acquired? I actually gave it to Dr. March.
Said man had walked out of the room and shut the door behind him.
Where'd he go?
Probably starting up on his analysis, and if it's a bat problem, then we'll let you know by tomorrow at the latest. Kirk said with a shrug of his shoulders.
Dad was just lecturing on the virtues of Chiroptera, bats in English if you were wondering.
Yeah, I hope he didn't get too carried away on that.
Kirk groaned a little when hearing that. He's rather protective on all of this. I think he enjoys their company over people any day of the week. I can't imagine.
Bruce said with a small chuckle.
If you only knew Dr.
Oh, and I also brought this as well. He said as he held up the tape recorder from last night, with some editing he took out to only focus on the roar.
I got a recording from my chimney and sorry if it sounds a bit off. Tried my best for a good recording.
He said before playing the tape.
R-A-A-A-A-A-A-R-H-H-H-H.
When this was played, Francine was rather startled when hearing this. But with Kirk, Bruce noticed he didn't shake up when hearing this at all.
Something seemed off about that. Bruce then stopped the recording and handed the device to Francine. That doesn't sound like any bat I've ever heard, Mr. Wayne.
She spoke while trying to come up with some thought to all of this.
We have an animal sound library here at the zoo.
Her husband said as he took the recorder from her. I'm sure the guys over there will be able to identify the sound.
So we'll let you know once the results come in. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Bruce said as he left the lab and went straight back home to figure things out this evening.
Bat Cave.
The sound of the roar was playing throughout the cave as Batman was trying to work things out on his end if he can't get the results in before going out on patrol.
I never depicted you to listen to rock and roll, sir.
Alfred said as he came over to switch out the empty pot of tea he left earlier.
You know, I had compared some of the sounds to any known bats. Even the computer can't make any heads or tails out of it.
The hero said as he scratched his head in slight frustration. Before he had left to the zoo earlier, he had his computer go through the samples found at the crime scene and things weren't all that conclusive. So he resorted to contacting the experts in this sort of thing when one little result came through that the hairs came from a bat. Even when he came back, he did the best he could to figure out the source of the sound. From what Bruce could tell was that he'll need to get more equipment when possible.
Ring 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 ring.
The sound of Bruce's phone went off in the cave, making him turn off the sound playing on his computer. With Bruce being closer to the phone, he picked it up and answered.
Hello.
Bruce Wayne speaking.
You have bats, Mr. Wayne. Common brown bats.
Dr. March said over the phone.
They shouldn't pose a problem as long as you don't smoke them out. But once the weather starts getting colder, they'll move on to a warmer area. But what about the sound on the tape?
Believe it or not, but it's actually two sounds spliced together.
Starlings and brown bats. Probably fighting over a nest in your chimney.
Thanks for the assist, Doc. I'll be sure to pay you back when you're raising funds again.
Good to know. Have a good night.
Dr. March said as he hung up the phone. Well, that narrows the sound down a little bit, but the computer would have picked up on it.
I went to them if they knew something I didn't, and that hair wasn't that of a typical brown bat. And those melodic sounds? Asked the Wayne butler.
Bruce typed up the designated bat species and pulled up their natural sounds before playing them at the same time. They sounded similar to the one from the recorder, but it didn't match up at all. More monstrous due to what Bruce concluded as the bat imposter being a metahuman.
I'm afraid that we are facing an incongruity here. Incongruity?
No. Dr. March is lying and I intend to find out.
Evening, Gotham Zoo.
Inside of the bat exhibits lab, a shadowy figure had his lab run a variety of chemicals through various tubes while he was handling the samples Mr. Wayne had brought in earlier. With the burner on, the person had brought out a pair of tongs to grab a hold of the tape before putting it over the open flame to destroy the film inside. Once placing it back onto a safety tray on the side, the person then used the same pair of tongs to do the same process again on the bag of hair samples. Once that was done, the person started to pant and groan a little. In response to this, the person pulled out the vials that were stolen from the pharmaceutical buildings and struggled to open them up before pouring them into the chemical fixture. With the chemicals doing their work, they traveled along their glass pathways with the person's eyes following them in an impatient struggle.
Come on. Come on. Hurry up.
The person said as the concoction finally reached its goal and the entire thing went into a glass beaker. As this went on, the person licked their lips in anticipation. Once the very last drop fell into the container, the person carefully picked it up to their lips and drank down the whole thing.
Cough cough panting cough, that should probably do it.
The person said while taking off the safety gloves before going into the other room. Without being noticed, Batman came out of his cover from the outside and slowly opened up the window to get inside of the lab before closing it back up. He was going to search the lab for clues, but the sound coming from his cowl was going off. With the particular tone going off in his ear was coming from his phone.
Need to keep this low. Batman muttered as he crouched down before answering the call. Hello. Did I catch you at a bad time? No. I don't think so. Why you ask Bethany?
He asked with his mind mostly focused on the task at hand.
What are you wearing?
This threw him off his game a little as he didn't know how to respond to that.
I'm sorry, but what? I'm hoping it's a tux since it's 7:30 and I'm expecting you in half an hour. Damn it, I forgot. The fundraiser dinner. Bruce thought as he quickly answered her back. With my checkbook, right?
Yup. As this went on, the door to the lab opened up violently.
Who's there?
The person said before scanning the room.
Don't bother, try and hide. I heard something in here.
Berating himself on this, he decided he needed to end the call now.
Bethany. I'm going to call you back.
Bruce? What is going dash? With the cover being blown, Batman came out of his hiding spot to address the person from the doorway, Dr. Kirk Langstrom.
I'm here to see Dr. March. Well, he's not here, Batman. Then where is he?
Giving a lecture on human extinction and bat evolution at the college as a guest speaker for a friend of his that teaches there. Kirk plainly said as he closed the door behind him and walked further into the lab.
He's really quite brilliant, you know. He's misguided and a thief. Batman said as he held up a chemical vial. My father-in-law is just a theorist, since he was afraid to put it to the test. But I wasn't.
The doctor said with a small chuckle as he walked past his work table. We'd discovered a formula to create a totally new species.
Neither man nor bat. And once I started taking it. Panting, I just couldn't stop. I honestly wanted to stop cough, but it took over. What are you saying?
The caped crusader said as he slowly readied himself for whatever is going to happen. Francine and her father tried to protect me, but it was too late. Panting, the beast already knew what chemicals it needed to bring itself about. It was out of my control, he said defensively before he started to groan. It took over and I was thrown into the back seat to make me get what it wanted.
Now grown, it's all in me.
Kirk yelled out as his body started to spasm to make him fall onto the lab table and try to get himself back up. Batman went closer to possibly help him, but Kirk yelled out to him.
Stay back.
With that final warning, his body started to shift and churn as his body started to enlarge itself with his hair starting to grow out. The clothes were straining against the fabric as his eyes started to dangerously dilate with the veins of his eyes showing up drastically. His ears started to shift into a sharpened tip with his hands starting to gain more skin in between his elongated fingers before it seemed to spread underneath his arms.
Gray ah.
Kirk yelled out in a mighty roar like screech as the man-bat soon took over. It raised its arms free as the clothing shredded like a pseudo-cocoon before it swung its arms across the table, spilling all of its contents onto the floor.
My God!
Batman said as he saw the horrid spectacle before him. He then readied himself yet again as the man-bat jumped into the air and came down to him with its clawed feet. Batman ducked out of the way, only for the creature he's now facing glided across the room before coming back at him in high speeds. It brought down its talons on the hero as it ripped through part of his cape and costume to show some of the skin underneath.
Going to need a new suit after this,
he said as he then saw Man-Bat lift the table and quickly threw it at him. This time, Batman wasn't able to dodge in time as he was then pinned down with nowhere to run. He struggled to get himself free, but the creature jumped on top of the ruined piece of furniture to possibly finish off the hero.
Kirk? A voice called out. Both turned towards the source to see Francine in the doorway.
She gasped at the sight before speaking in a shaky tone.
What have you done?
The creature didn't react well to this and bellowed out a screech and opened up its wings to fly out of the room. Batman knew what Man-Bat was going to do, so he pulled out his grappling gun and fired at the man-turned-beast's leg to have it be wrapped in its hardened coil. He braced himself as he was then pulled out from underneath the desk and was sent flying with the Man-Bat flying out of the window. With the Man-Bat flying higher and higher into the night sky, it soon realized the weight it had as it was pulling him down from its leg. It looked back in confirmation to realize that the Batman was still on him. With that in mind, it started to shift and turn to hopefully get the hero of Gotham to let go so that it can be free to do whatever it wants. As this was going on, the GCPD blimp was doing its rounds for the evening. Blip 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 blip. I'm getting something strange here, Mark.
Groan, oh not this again, Frank. I'm serious, Mark. It's right below us.
As he said this, the man-bat flew right in front of them with its monstrous screech that got the two officers startled at the sight.
What the devil? Mark yelled out before a loud bang was sounded off in their miniature cabin.
The two officers soon saw the source as they saw Batman pressed up against the glass. With the impact he made had gotten it to web out before he was pulled out of his placement and was dragged back out into the night sky.
Gotham Command. We need choppers now. We just spotted Batman and some sort of man-bat thing.
Frank yelled out into the radio as his eyes were locked onto the spectacle before him.
Meanwhile, Sai, it's practically quiet out tonight.
Vanitas said as he was perched on top of his corporate building. The full moon was bright out tonight, making him gaze upon its beauty.
Nothing really going on so far. Might as well call it a night and see what Selina would want to do for the evening.
He was ready to jump off of the building when he saw a bat-like creature flying across his vision, with someone dangling from its clawed foot.
Naruto used his helmet to hone onto the figure and was able to see. Batman? What the fuck is going on?
He thought as he saw the creature fly closer to his position.
I might as well get some answers now. As the beast flew closer to the building, Vanitas jumped off of his placement and threw his arm out to summon his grappling scarf. It extended as far as it could and grabbed a hold of the unoccupied leg. With a jolt, the disguised Uzumaki was then dragged along for the ride.
With the new added weight onto the beast, it looked back to see another person trying to bring it down.
Well, ain't this a blast so far? Vanitas yelled out as he looked towards Batman, who was holding on to dear life. What are you doing here? Apparently helping you out, Bats. Vanitas said as he had to try and move himself from not hitting a nearby building. Seems that you're not the only bat here in Gotham? Batman didn't respond to Vanitas' joke as he was more focused on staying alive and stopping the man-bat before it causes any problems. GCPD.
The sound of helicopter blades were starting to rotate at high speeds to indicate that it was starting to take off. Soon the door to the building's rooftop was violently slammed open to reveal Bullock running towards the helicopter.
Come on. Let's go. Let's go.
The detective said as he tried to open the door of the chopper.
I can't do that, sir.
The pilot said, getting Harvey to look at him oddly.
What do you mean you can't do that?
I just got word not to let you in here without the commissioner.
Who told you that? I did. Gordon yelled out as he ran across the rooftop. Get out of here, detective.
The mayor may or may not let me fire you, but I'm not taking the heat for your fiasco.
You heard the mayor, Commissioner. This is my case. Then why don't you take it up with him? Gordon yelled out as he made his way into the chopper. I've got a job to do, and if you want to tag along, then go ahead.
Once the bespectacled man got inside, he told the pilot to take off.
Hey! Wait up! Bullock yelled as he jumped inside of the chopper. Back with the action, insert Kingdom Hearts 2.5, 13th Dilemma extended.
The man-bat was flying all over the city to hopefully get rid of the pests latched onto its legs. Swinging around with a lot of effort to finally let go, but they were very persistent. It soon realized that it needed to fly into some hazards. What it didn't know was that both pests have been knocking into each other quite often on this joyful ride of theirs. It would have been easier if only one of them was latched onto the legs, but with two. Well, the two are realizing how fun it is hitting each other.
I swear.
Grown I would throw up right now if I didn't have this helmet on. Vanitas said as he tried to stabilize himself, but with the man-bat being the one steering this whole time is making things harder to do so.
Didn't even help that he kept hitting against Batman. Would have enjoyed being in an airplane over than this.
Smack, at least I would have had something to stay sturdy on. In his mild nausea, he barely missed the warning from Batman on the construction site ahead of them. While Batman was able to move his body better to move away from some of the metal beams, Vanitas kept smacking against them.
Smack ow. Smack ack. Smack fuck that hurts.
Soon the Man-Bat went upwards to make the two heroes soar into the upper levels of the construction site before going through several loop-de-loops in fast speeds.
Aha! We're gonna die. We're gonna die. I'm going to throw up. And then I'm gonna die.
Vanitas screamed out with him not enjoying all of the spinnings and twirls any longer.
Ma. Will you just shut up? Batman snapped out as he got frustrated on Vanitas' yells and complaints on this entire struggle. Maya keek me.
An opportunity soon presented itself as Batman had he let go of his grappling gun, making him fall onto the Man-Bat's back. With this new surprisement, the beast flew out of the construction site before doing the same tactics as before to shake off this pest. But this time, Batman was fighting for control of the wheel. As this was going on, the GCDP chopper was flying through Gotham in search of Batman and that Man-Bat thing, one of the officers reported. Their wait was over as the occupants of the helicopter soon saw several figures approaching their position.
They soon saw an odd spectacle of Batman riding something. What the hell is that thing? Bullock yelled out, voicing the others' thoughts. That thing is what we are after,
Gordon said before he noticed that they were coming closer.
Move.
On the sudden command, the pilot did just that to move out of the way as the Man-Bat took a dive, sending Vanitas higher into the air. Because of that, his grappling scarf soon met the path of the helicopter blades, making them slice through the fabric. With losing its connection to the beast, the helmeted Uzumaki was sent flying higher into the air.
Fuck.
With the spinning Vanitas was experiencing, he wasn't be able to focus properly to shoot out his grappling scarf. He was then resorted try to latch onto a nearby building, but he banged off to the side and fell farther away from said building. It seemed that the masked Uzumaki wasn't going to make it with the wind accelerating him towards his demise.
I can't die here like this,
he yelled out as he tried to focus his powers to at least survive the fall, but it wasn't responding.
Like something seemed to block his connection.
He focused harder and harder with more determination before he yelled out in frustration.
Come on. Give me something. Anything at all. And just like that, something clicked inside of him.
Something that felt lost seemed to have returned to him as the surrounding air felt natural to him after a decade. A dark torrent of air started to form around Vanitas' hand before he grabbed a hold of it out of instinct. Once doing so, he jerked midair due to the sudden stop from his fall that made it feel like his arm almost got ripped out of its socket.
Dear Cammy, that is going to fucking hurt for the rest of the night.
The masked Uzumaki groaned out before he looked upwards to see what helped save his life.
At first, he thought it was an odd-colored pole with its blue and purple tones on the metal surface.
But when he was inspecting the length, which seemed to be roughly his height, there were blades coming out from the ends of the pole to get the former shinobi to realize it's a lance. With one end of the lance had the one symbol he kept seeing on his summoned weapons and notebook, while the other end had an odd metallic dragon's head of sort to finish off the rest of its appearance.
I did not expect seeing that, he thought out loud as he didn't know what to do exactly with it.
It was just sitting there in the air while he was dangling several hundred feet above the ground.
What should I do with this? Get on it. What?
Vanitas questioned as he didn't know where that voice came from.
Get on it. Okay.
With some hesitation, he pulled himself up and was going to sit down when the lance started to move all on its own. It forced him to balance onto the pole with his feet as he soon zipped across the sky like he was riding a surfboard or a skateboard.
Vanitas wondered if he was going to feel sick again, but oddly enough he didn't feel any bit nauseous at all.
In fact, he felt better than before. I don't know why I'm like this now, but I'll figure that later. I need to find Batman and that Man-Bat thing, he said as he soon scanned the city for any sign of the two bats, all the while getting his lance to go higher for a better view.
As it climbed higher, the masked Uzumaki soon saw the pair of bats some distance away. The lance moved without warning again as it bolted through the sky to get towards its target. It wasn't long for Vanitas to get closer to see Batman punching Man-Bat's face while steering away from several buildings. That must not be fun at all. The former shinobi muttered as he got closer to the two and brought his arms out to get the grappling scarves to latch onto Man-Bat's legs. He pulled as hard as he could while getting his lance to slow things to a complete stop. The sudden halt caused the bats to end up crashing against a parking garage, leaving a large indent against its wall with the masked rider thrown off of his lance. They soon landed onto the ground with the two heroes shaking the cobwebs out of their heads while the Man-Bat was rendered unconscious. Finally. It's over. Vanitas groaned out before a spotlight shined upon them. Spoke too soon. This is the Gotham Police. Hand over the Man-Bat thing now. A loud voice called out from the speakers before it was suddenly cut off to another voice. What did I say about messing with the speaker without permission, Bullock? Not to touch it. As this went on, Batman had ushered Vanitas to help carry the Man-Bat. He then pulled out several smoke bombs and threw them onto the ground to help cover their mistake. Even Vanitas had to disperse his lance, which was nearby the helicopter, which made a large amount of smoke that was hard to get rid of with the rotating blades of the chopper. By the time things were cleared up, the three were gone. You know, Vanitas started to say as he was walking for a bit of time with the other hero of Gotham, you didn't have to ask me to help you out. Well, I needed to since I think I might have sprained my ankle on that fall. Ouch. The masked publisher said with a sympathetic hiss. Yeah, that would explain that now. So how much longer till I can leave you 2B for the evening? Just a little more. Batman said before bringing one of his hands towards his belt and pressed a button to get his Batmobile to roar to life with the hood opening up. Here is good. Great because whoever this guy is bloody heavy. The two carefully placed the beast into the passenger seat of the Batmobile before Batman pulled out a tranquilizer and stabbed it into the creature's neck. It was so that it would stay asleep a whole lot longer for what Batman had planned to do for the rest of the evening. Vanitas didn't want to know as he summoned his motorcycle and drove off into the night to parts unknown. Bat Cave. When getting back to the cave, Batman had a bit of a struggle to get Kirk out of the vehicle. Luckily Alfred was there for the assist before placing the changed man onto the medical table. After that, Batman had hooked the beast up to his computer to run a diagnostic on him. I take it that you didn't make it to dinner with Bethany, Master Bruce? Alfred rhetorically questioned, getting his charge to look at him. She called the manor after you supposedly hung up on her. She called at an awkward time. Bruce defended as he focused on the readings the computer was displaying on the screen so far on Kirk's condition. Sigh, what am I ever going to do with you, Master Wayne? The ever-faithful butler said with a shake to his head. You better call her back when possible to make up for. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Standing her up? I will after I fix Dr. Langstrom here. Good. It helps a bit that I have a list of all of the stolen chemicals that ended up being used to make Kirk into a monster. Bruce said as he brought up said chemicals onto the screen. I just hope I can undo what has been done upon him, Alfred. Alfred could only look onto the screen as several scenarios were played out to possibly figure out the cure. Then does it appear feasible, sir? Once that was said, a result came through making the Playboy to give out a smile. It just might. Sunrise, Gotham Zoo. The sound of the Batmobile's engines roared as it came through the service entrance of the zoo before it came to a complete stop near the Bat exhibit. As the hood of the vehicle opened, Francine rushed out of the building in a worried state. She drew closer as her eyes were landed on the wrapped-up form held in Batman's arms. Is he all right? The only answer she got was Batman unfurling the wrappings to reveal her husband back to his normal form with some stitches and bandages on him. She sighed in relief to see her husband was human again since what he became. It scared her greatly. Speaking of, is he going to change again? Batman shook his head as he walked towards the entrance of the Bat exhibit. He won't, the formula is out of his system. So, things are over for now. She didn't know what he meant and asked him as she opened the door for him to get her husband inside. With the sun starting to rise from the horizon, a figure was slowly revealed from the building's rooftop. To show that Vanitas was hiding on the building's rooftop this entire time. After what happened hours ago, the masked Uzumaki had to leave and patrol the city again. Reason being was that when he got that lance of his, he felt a storm brewing inside of him that needed to settle down. The only thing he thought was to bring out his new weapon and ride it until he felt it calm down. Like before, nothing else happened since the Man-Bat had come out and the police were heavily patrolling the streets, making all crime lessen for the night. But that didn't mean Naruto stopped what he was doing. Nothing actually going on, he rode the lance-like weapon at a decent pace. First with just riding it like it was a surfboard or a skateboard for a while before sitting down on it to ride it like a stereotypical witch or wizard. Riding at various speeds to try and settle down the storm for all it's worth. During all that time, it felt truly satisfying to feel the wind rushing through him even with his helmet put away to get the full feeling. Time had passed as he saw the sun start to rise from the horizon and he was ready to go home when he somehow spotted the Batmobile. His curiosity had piqued as he wondered where it was going. So, he rode his lance to follow the trail before it ended up at the Gotham Zoo. From there, he saw what occurred outside of the Bat exhibit and got all of the answers he needed before using his lance to fly back home without any problems of air sickness anymore. Evening. So, are you going to tell me why you blew me off on our first date last night? And hang up on me? Bethany asked as she was seated across from Bruce at a nice restaurant. After dropping off Kirk Langstrom at the Gotham Zoo, he went home and rested for a few hours, especially since he needed to ice up his sprained ankle. When it was an appropriate time, he called Bethany and apologized and asked if she would be willing to go to dinner that night. The therapist said yes, but would want to hear his excuse face to face. I was helping someone out that needed my attention. Didn't know the man all that well, but felt the need to do what I can to possibly save his marriage. I see. She said as she took a sip from her wine glass. But did it work? I think so. The two might be going through some counseling for the time being. He responded with a shrug. Never really has been my strong suit. Relationships, that is. She chuckled at this when remembering that little tidbit from their previous sessions. Well, let's see what we can do to change that. Then I'm glad that I'm not your patient anymore. Bruce said, making her smile a little. After saying her piece, Bruce's eye caught on to something that surprised him and voiced it. Naruto? Selena? What are you two doing here? Bruce called out, making the secret couple look towards the source. Oh, hey Bruce. Nice seeing you here. Naruto said as he and his girlfriend got closer with smiles on their faces. But underneath their smiles, they were freaking out a little that they were spotted, but they knew that someone might spot them sooner or later. Reason why they came prepared. Nice seeing you as well. The playboy said to his friend before looking at the environmentalist. How's your side, Selena? It's doing alright, she said with a shrug. Have to try and not move in certain angles or else the pain will come back. Would have been worse if the stitches didn't settle. Then I'm glad to hear that. Bruce said with a smile to see her feeling better. Like I promised in our arrangement, I'll send you what I owe you on whatever charity you plan to donate next. Great to hear that, Bruce. But that still doesn't answer what you two are doing here? Naruto chuckled a little as he brought up the excuse. Well, I had promised Selena to take her to this one fundraising event last night, but I was held up at work all night long for some projects coming up soon. So, he apologized to me and offered to make it up with dinner. Selena quickly said before adding in one more thing. As friends, that is. Funny. Somewhat the same excuse Bruce gave me. Bethany said to get the secret couple to look at her. I'm sorry. I haven't introduced myself. Dr. Bethany Ravencroft, she said as she held out her hand for the two. Where have I heard that name before? Naruto thought as Selena shook the blonde's hand as she introduced herself. A thought then came to the forefront of his mind and remembered the magpie incident along with his chats with the bird-themed woman. Oh, her. The publisher then saw the greeting end between the two women before Naruto shook the therapist's hand. Nice to meet you, Dr. Ravencroft, Naruto Uzumaki, the owner of Spiral Publishing, Bethany said with a smile. I enjoy a lot of the works your company has published, especially with your latest book. Why thank you, Doctor. Why don't you two join us? The therapist suddenly asked, getting the others to look at her funny. It might be fun and I don't mind having the dinner be a double date. Are you sure on that? Selena asked, since she had hoped to have another private dinner with just her and her boyfriend. We don't want to intrude on your date. I'm really fine with it, really, Bethany said before putting her attention towards Bruce. What do you say, Bruce? Seeing the pressure was on him, he sighed before nodding and called the nearby waiter to combine the two parties. When the tables were being set up, Bethany excused herself to go use the restroom. As she was on her way, she pulled her phone out of her purse and dialed a number before bringing the device to her ear. Yes, it's me. I'm having dinner with him now as we speak. I practically got him hooked. There's another thing that I should mention. I'm having dinner with Naruto Uzumaki as well. Then I'll wait for further instructions, the therapist said before she hung up the phone as she went to use the restroom to freshen up. Chapter 17, Two-Face. The sounds of running could be heard in the darkness as a man was trying to get away from something. Or someone. He didn't know how long he has been doing this, with the indication of his sweated face and frantic eyes looking around if he lost the person following him. He eventually tripped on something, or moved his foot at a certain angle, causing him to fall onto the ground. Panting heavily, I need to keep running. Panting, I can't stop now, the man said. He got back up to run again. Harvey, a voice called out from the darkness. Harvey Dent. No. The now identified Harvey Dent yelled out. Stay away from me. Just leave me alone. The DA kept on running as the sounds of demented laughter filled the darkness, seeming to originate everywhere at once. He just needed to get away from him. Demented chuckle. Where do you think you're going, Harvey? The same voice called out once again in a taunting tone. You can't get away from me that easily. Harvey kept on running and some sweat had come into contact with his eyes, making him bring his sleeve onto his face to wipe some of it off. That seemed to cause him to lose focus for a brief moment in his run, as he bumped into someone and fell onto the darkened ground. When looking up, he saw the man he was running from. Aha! Stay away! The DA screamed out as he crawled backwards, away from the man towering over him. See what I mean, Harvey? The man said as he drew closer to the downed DA. I don't want any part of you, Harvey said as he tried to regain his composure. There was no vocal response, as the shadowed man reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin. He positioned it into his closed hand and flipped it into the air. The sounds of it coming down seemed to agitate the DA as he didn't want to hear more of it, making him cover his ears in the process. Once it landed, the shadowed man kept flipping into the air to repeat the process over and over again, with the sounds of the coin getting louder and louder. Stop it! Of course, the other man didn't stop what he was doing for God knows how long, until... It's time, Harvey, the man said in an ominous tone that seemed to scare Harvey even more. It's time. One more flick of the coin went into the air, but this time it was coming down towards Harvey. The coin seeming grew bigger and bigger by each passing moment to possibly flatten and kill the cowardly man. When it got much closer to his impending doom, he screamed. No! Harvey yelled out as he woke up in a sweated mess. He brought his hand over his face to end up feeling the sweat coming off of him badly, but it didn't matter as he tried to calm himself down from the horrid nightmare he just had. Calm down, Harvey. It was only just a dream, he said to himself as he got up from his couch to grab a glass of water from the other side of his office. His throat felt raw and in pain with how much he possibly could have screamed. So, he needed the pure liquid to help moisten it up and help him feel a little better. Knock knock. Ye asterisk cough yes. Who is it? Harvey asked as his throat tried to adjust itself. The door soon opened up as a voice called out. Harvey, it's Carlos. Oh, Carlos. Good to see you. The DA said as he tried to compose himself a little more. What do you need? Harvey, it's time. Harvey's aide told him, getting the DA to shaken a little on that last bit. In time for what? His aide looked at him funny and decided to voice his thoughts. Are you okay, Harvey? You seem shaken up. I'm fine. Just a bad nightmare. Harvey said to get his aide to nod at this. So I'm asking again, but in time for what exactly? The raid, sir. Carlos said, getting the DA to perk up at this. Gordon called and said that the raid is happening now. I see. Then we better get going. Abandoned apartment building. Police sirens filled the air as searchlights were hitting across the surface of the heavily defended building for any sign of any thugs present in the building. For what is going on exactly, men that work for criminal overlord Rupert Thorne had stolen weapons and supplies from Gotham's army depots. Commissioner Gordon, with the help of Harvey Dent, had organized the raid to get the supplies back. This is Commissioner Gordon. We have the place surrounded. So come on out with your hands up and no one will get hurt. The auburn-haired male said inside of the loudspeaker. Fuck off, Gordon. A thug called out from one of the broken windows. Soon, Harvey had rushed over to the scene where Gordon is currently standing. It took him a bit to get there because of the traffic, but it seemed that he didn't miss anything yet. Hey Jim, how's it going? Harvey greeted before sounds of gunfire were present with several bullets hitting the police car in front of them. This caused the two law officials to duck behind the car while some officers returned fire. Could have been better, Dent. James said before one of the officers came up to him. Sir, the SWAT team is ready. Just give the word and we'll enter the building. Good, but wait on my orders. I don't want anyone to jump the gun and risk their lives without my approval. The commissioner ordered, getting the one officer to nod and head back to repeat Gordon's order. As this was going on, the thugs inside of the derelict building were opening up several crates of weapons to be ready for the oncoming onslaught headed their way. Chuckles, man, this is going to blow a hole in their barricade. One of the thugs said as he pulled out a rocket launcher from the army crate. Grunt, mind helping me out here? Need to get this by the window over there. Sure. The other thug said as he helped lift the weapon. Guys. One of the thugs near the window called out, getting their attention. They're ready to move. Chuckle, let them try. The rocket launcher one cockily said. There ain't nobody gonna get in here alive. As one of the thugs was loading up the rocket, another thug pulled out his walkie-talkie and spoke into it. You guys down there ready? Definitely, man. Then be ready when the cops start coming up, since you boys are our defense up here. You got it. The thug below spoke out before the call ended. Just as the radio thug put his device, he was grabbed from behind and was knocked out. Coming out from the shadows revealed the Dark Knight as he was going to punch the living daylights out of the thugs on this level. Down on the floor below, all of the thugs were at the ready with their assault rifles for when the police start arriving from the doorway, since the only way to get to the upper level is through them. Things were pretty tense with how quiet things were, aside from the noise coming from outside. Just as they were waiting for the boys upstairs to start things off,
a blast emanated from the floor in the center of the room.
Gah!
Several men cried out as most were sent away from the blast, while others fell down through the hole. In the middle of the confusion, Vanitas had jumped out of the hole and grabbed a hold of the rafter beam and the ceiling before throwing several explosive cards at the thugs' weapons. The moment they came in contact, they exploded and sent them either away from the thugs' hands or breaking them instantly. One of the thugs thought the person responsible was still down in the hole and started firing into it, causing him to kill a few of his fellow thugs in the process by mistake. Said thug was then grabbed by Vanitas' scarf and pulled high into the air before smacking against the floor ceiling and plummeted back down to knock him out. When the hero came back down from the ceiling, he grabbed a hold of one of the thugs and twisted his arm to get the man to let go of the weapon, but he wasn't budging as he started to open fire on reflex. The helmeted Uzumaki soon spun him around to empty the weapons clip before flipping the man over his shoulder and throwing him into the hole. Shots were soon fired upon the publisher as he dodged out of the line of fire before sliding on the floor and shot out his grappling scarf to latch onto one of the thugs. Once it was successful, Vanitas pulled hard, sending the thug towards him and kicked him into another thug. They tried to get back up, but with the thug still attached to the scarf, he was sent flying back to the hero and was kicked again into the same thug to render both of them unconscious or not moving that much. In the corner of his vision, Vanitas soon saw one of the thugs aiming his weapon at him. The black and white hero summoned a dagger and threw it at the man's hand to make him drop the weapon as he held his hand in extreme pain. The hero then turned his attention towards the thugs coming towards him as he ducked and blocked several blows on his person before returning the favor and kicked each of them in the process. One of the thugs pulled a knife at him and attempted to stab him several times, but on the last thrust his arm was caught and he was sent flying towards the wall hard. Shots were fired once again as Vanitas had to weave right through them. He soon ran towards one thug and grabbed a hold of his shirt as he jumped over a crate and slammed the man down on it. Once on the other side of the box, he used his scarf to latch onto the box behind him and threw it towards a group of thugs huddled together to get them knocked out in the end. Once that was done, Vanitas scanned the room to see if there was anyone else still standing. He then realized that there were none left since he had expected there to be more. Then again there were, but they were on the upper floor. There were a few thugs that tried to get back up, but for good measure the hero summoned a few daggers and threw them down to keep the thugs in place. "Now you boys stay right where you are and don't go anywhere," the hero said as he saw them groan out in pain or attempting to pull the daggers out of their places. "It's not like you're going to leave or anything." Boom. "What the fuck?" the masked Uzumaki said out loud as he wondered what that was. He then went up the stairwell towards the upper level and saw a rocket launcher with a smoking barrel near him. From there, he saw other thugs lying on the ground either knocked out or groaning in pain with Batman standing in the middle. "So?" Vanitas called out, gaining Batman's attention. "Did you have fun up here like I did down there?" As that was said, a group of SWAT team members came into the room and aimed their weapons at the ready. Of course, once they saw all of the down thugs, they lowered their weapons, but kept them at the ready as one of them called it, in that Batman and Vanitas took care of the problem. From there, a mixture of SWAT and cops were handcuffing and escorting all of the thugs out of the building and into police custody. Several minutes had passed as the last of Thorne's men were taken out of the building while being put into the various police vans that were arriving onto the scene. As this went on, a horde of reporters and photographers started to arrive and started to ask questions to the DA and Commissioner. None were answered so far until Harvey brought up his hands up to signal off that he was going to finally speak. "As your district attorney, I would like to commend Commissioner Gordon and his men for their fine work," Harvey said with joy in his voice that the reporters ate up gleefully. As this went on, Gordon looked up towards the roof of the ransacked building and saw Batman's figure in front of the moonlight before he went to parts unknown. "And thank you," the bespectacled man muttered before seeing a figure floating in the air on a stick of sorts and waved at the man before shooting off into the night sky. "And you too." "Excuse me, Mr. Dent, but was it you that had planned this raid?" a reporter asked, getting the DA to nod at this. "Why, of course, and I'm glad to say that one of Rupert Thorne's criminal rings has now been broken."
Harvey said as various cameras went off, making him temporarily blinded by the brightness.
As I've stated in my re-election campaign, I will not rest until Gotham City has been dethroned once and for all. Once that was stated, the various people in the area, from reporters, varying officers and officials, were clapping and cheering.
Of course, not everyone in the surrounding area was cheerful as one of the handcuffed thugs looked onward in disdain while being escorted into the van.
He wrestled free from his hold before speaking out.
"You talk big, pretty boy, but you ain't gonna be once Rupert Thorne gets through with you,"
the thug said before kicking a nearby muddy puddle to send most of the gunk at Harvey's suit.
"He's chews and spits out fuckers like you for breakfast." "Okay, that's enough out of you,"
the one officer said as he tried to get the thug into the vehicle. Things seemed to slow down to most of the world as Harvey started to get angrier by the second. Hearing the laughs of the detained thugs from the surrounding vans at the display.
Then all of a sudden, the DA snapped. "Why, you little dash!"
he yelled out as he rushed towards the thug from earlier and grabbed a hold of his jacket and threw him across the pavement and into the muddy puddle.
"I'm going to tear your measly little body apart."
"Hey!
What the fuck are you doing?"
the thug yelled out as he tried to get free from the DA's grasp.
"Isn't someone going to help?"
"Hey!
Break it up, sir,"
one of the officers said as they tried to separate the two.
"Kicking mud in my face, will ya?"
Harvey yelled out again as he was going to throw a punch at the thug's face before it was caught by Commissioner Gordon's grasp.
"Harvey, that's enough," he said to the DA, "get a hold of yourself."
And just like that, Harvey seemed to snap out of it and revert to his courteous, amiable self. But just the way his eyes darted around on the scene, Gordon saw that something was off about the DA. Like he was a different person from before, as the man in front of him seemed truly scared on what he had just done.
Jim,"
Harvey tried to say as he saw the various people around him look at him in shock at what they just seen.
I. Come on, Harvey, we need to leave now,"
Gordon said as he pulled Harvey away from the reporters.
"You can't afford a publicity like this."
Hey! That guy should be sent to jail."
"Not me,"
the assaulted thug cried out before being shoved into the van and the door slamming into his face to shut him up. Once they were a good distance away, Gordon decided to voice his thoughts.
"Harvey, what the hell were you thinking back there?" I don't know, Jim,"
he nervously said.
"I guess he hit just the right button." "Then that's got to be one hell of a button,"
Gordon muttered as he saw the DA walk away from the scene and towards his car to head home for the night.
Rupert Thorne's office.
Well, it's been another wild night in East Gotham as police intercepted an arms shipment, which District Attorney Harvey Dent is trying to connect to Rupert Thorne. Unfortunately, Handsome Harvey has earned a new nickname, Hothead Harvey, when he attacked one of the suspects. Summer Gleason said over the television before it got muted via remote.
"My oh my, that man is crazy."
A shoulder-length, black-haired woman sat off to the side of the room. She appeared to be in her late 20s, early 30s while wearing a red office business attire with a gray shirt and black tie around her neck.
"Yeah, crazy like a fox,"
a man said as he placed the remote off to the side. He was a man in his mid to late 50s in a heavyset look, wearing a dark suit with a green vest and black tie to oddly match his white hair. That little tantrum might as well buy him another 10,000 votes. "Then why don't we get him to swim in a cement soup, boss?" a thug suggested off to the side.
"And bring down even more heat on us?" "I don't think so," the man said as he paced around the room a little.
"I want him in my pocket, boys. I want you to find some dirt on our dashing DA, something really juicy if possible."
"Then I'm afraid that's going to be a problem, Mr. Thorne,"
the woman said, getting her boss to look at her.
"He's so clean he could practically squeak."
"Just stay on his tail, Candace," Rupert Thorne said as he was staring at the TV monitor with the news still playing. All men have something to hide. As most people say, the brighter the picture, the darker the negative.
Of course, sir. The now identified Candace said as she left the office to do as she has been ordered while dragging everyone out of the room to help plan things out for the coming times. Few days later, Wayne Manor. The sounds of clapping and cheering filled the air as the current DA was walking up on the podium. Once things had settled down, he took several deep breaths, which resulted in him coughing for a brief moment or two. When that was settled, he spoke in a loud, firm voice. Hello and thank you all for coming to this event today, people. It means a lot to see many of Gotham's residents here to support my cause for a better Gotham with your votes. If we want this city safe again, then we'll have to come down hard on these criminals. I will not see the people of Gotham. Bruce, it's so nice of you to sponsor this fundraiser for Harvey. Grace said as she stood by said playboy along with Naruto and Selena in the midst of the crowd of people. Since this was mostly a public event, Naruto had decided to show up to support his friend and to properly donate the money he had promised Harvey back on New Year's. Hell, he practically wrote out the check and handed it to Harvey himself. As for Selena, she tagged along after being convinced by her boyfriend that she could possibly gather money for any charities coming up or to at least give her a better image after the past incidents that involved around her. Well, Harvey and I go way back, Bruce said with a smile. He's a great DA and a better friend. I can tell, Selena said as she got into the conversation now. You two work well together and your relationship is a good, strong one, Bruce. Why thank you, Selena. Though to tell you the truth, something seems awfully intense. You're not the only one, Bruce. Naruto jotted in as he stared at Harvey with narrowed eyes. For the past several days, he had been feeling these negative emotions rolling off of him in waves. They are suppressed, but he could tell that something seemed off. Especially with the news report of Harvey attacking one of Thorne's men after the raid. Are you sure nothing is wrong with him, Grace? I'm guessing it's just the stress of the campaign that gets to him at times. I do what I can to help relieve it, but it seems to come back at a later point. Fair point. Though he doesn't seem to be really himself. Bruce said his 2 cents before the sounds of clapping filled the air once again as Harvey stepped down from the stage and into the mass of people. Mr. Dent. Mr. Dent. An elderly woman said as she came up to the current DA, I want to let you know that I have voted for you 2 times and I plan for a 3rd. Then I hope that those were from separate elections. He responded with a joking tone that got others to laugh. Mr. Dent. Grace called out as she sauntered her way towards her future husband. When are you finally going to marry that gorgeous fiancé of yours? The only response she got out of that question was her fiancé to wrap his arms around her and spun her around that made her giggle a little while the masses laughed at the display. I hope you do it fast, Harvey. I might just steal her myself. Do that and I'll prosecute Bruce. Harvey responded as the engaged couple were walking further into the crowd. Harvey, the DA's assistant said as he moved closer towards him. Harvey. Yes? The DA asked as he acknowledged his assistant. What is it? I need to talk to you privately for a moment. Are you sure? You could tell me in front of everyone else. No, sir, I really need to talk to you. Hearing that tone of voice, Harvey excused himself and walked some distance away from the masses as everyone else started to get into their own conversations. What's wrong, Carlos? You're not going to like this, but the judge just threw out the case on Thorne's men. His aide said as he pulled out a slip of paper and handed it to his boss. Once reading more on this to see if it was a joke, the results were instant. What? Harvey questioned in shock as he reread it again and again to see if there was anything wrong. But why Carlos? The warrant wasn't complete. The judge had no choice but to let them go. Had to? The DA yelled out as his breath started to grow harder and his dark eyes started to darken even more as his eyes seemed to dilate. But all that he could see was red. But I planned 3 months on that raid. He can't overturn on that. He's blocked just like the rest.
The man was going to throw his aid towards the serving table, but someone stopped him from the process.
"That's enough, Harvey," Naruto said as he was able to separate the two. "This isn't going to look for you if you do this. Stay out of this," the angered DA said as he was going to punch Naruto in the face.
But the sudden appearance of His Grace came in front of the publisher to defend her friend.
Harvey,
seeing her in the forefront of his vision, seemed to snap him out of it. Everything went clear again as he then realized what he just did.
Grace. Naruto. I am sorry. I don't know what. Excuse me, I need some time alone.
As he said that, he walked away from the masses whom were filling the airs with hushed murmurs. Naruto, Selena, Grace and Bruce looked on in worry as they soon followed the DA inside. Unbeknownst to either of them due to the confusion going on, a particular dark-haired secretary smiled at the scene with what she can now inform her boss about. As the group was getting further into the manor, Bruce was the one that called out to Harvey.
But he wasn't responding at all as he kept on walking.
Eventually they followed him into one of the studies when Bruce decided to ask again, but using a bit of his bat persona in the works.
"Harvey, what was that back there?"
the playboy said in a lower voice to finally get his friend to respond.
"I just blew off the handle, that's all. So don't worry, I got things under control." "Harvey, you didn't just lose your temper out there. You were a completely other person. I said I was sorry."
The DA said to try and push the situation aside, but no one else was having it.
"Tell that to that Carlos person back there along with the masses,"
Selena bluntly said, getting her secret boyfriend to look at her.
"Selena,"
Naruto said in a slight warning tone.
No, it's all right, Naruto,"
Harvey said as he came to look at them. "She practically said it, and I do need to apologize to them, aside from you and Grace."
"Maybe you should get some help," Bruce suggested. "He's already getting help,"
Grace said, getting her fiancé to look at her in surprise.
"Grace,
you didn't need to dash, but Bruce and Naruto are your friends, honey."
"Hey, don't be embarrassed, Harvey," the environmentalist said to possibly help out on the situation. "A lot of people see psychologists and therapists, whether they are important or not. But not when they are running for public office." The DA countered his former client.
"You know how most voters feel about shrinks. Well, I, for one, am proud of you and relieved,"
the billionaire said in a lighter tone of mood.
"It takes a strong man to admit that he has a problem."
"Yeah, I can understand that, but please keep this under the hat, will you?" "Don't worry, Harvey, if there is one thing I know is to keep a secret,"
his dark-haired friend defended while getting the others in the room to nod and promise the same thing. When things were said and done, the group went back outside as Harvey had first apologized to his aide before telling the masses about his outburst. It was a moment of stress and things gotten out of hand. The people attending the event seemed to accept it, but seemed weary on what still occurred earlier.
Overall, the rest of the fundraising event was practically normal before things ended. Night, Nora Crest's office.
It was a rather stormy night so far as it was practically raining cats and dogs while the wind was howling. Most people would try to stay in their homes for the evening, but it seemed that there were some people still working.
Especially one that was very suddenly scheduled earlier in the day. "Now, you are falling into a deep sleep,"
the doctor said as she swung back and forth her watch.
"Can you hear me, Mr. Dent?" "Yes, Dr. Crest,"
Harvey responded in a sleepy daze.
"Good,"
the doctor said as she placed her watch back into her jacket pocket. The woman in question is Nora Crest, a woman in her late 50s with her grayed-out hair tied into a bun while wearing a blue suit. Harvey has been seeing her for years and she knows all about Harvey's condition.
"Now, Harvey, I would like to speak to your other personality. To speak with Big Bad Harv."
The man's breath seemed to labor a little as he struggled to hold him in.
I don't think it's a good idea," he doesn't want to talk. But we must in order to help you.
Nora said, making Harvey gulp and accept the fact. He dwelled inside of himself before his body started to twitch and spasm a little before it went back to a relaxed state before the eyelids slowly opened. Once was a pair of good-natured vision were now replaced with hate and malice as the rest of his features seemed to match with an ever-present scowl. To finish things off, the man that replaced the DA reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a coin before he started to play with it.
Big Bad Harv?
Her response wasn't immediate as his scowl slowly went into a crooked smile before voicing the answer in a growl-like tone.
Speaking.
With Nora getting the confirmation that the persona switch was successful, she had finally brought up the issue of the meeting. It appears that you and Harvey are having trouble again. Chuckle, the man is a complete wimp.
Well, Harvey has a lot of special problems.
Dr. Crest simply stated before getting out of her chair and walked towards the window, with the rain hitting against it and flashes of lightning occasionally lit up the sky. When he was young, he felt very guilty about his angry feelings. So guilty that he had buried them deep inside until it became something else.
Or rather someone else.
She paused as she turned around and looked straight at the man in front of her. You, Big Bad Harv, came out from these angry feelings. Everyone feels anger and it does no harm, as long as it doesn't end up as a bad behavior.
Once Harvey understands this then maybe I'll go away.
He concluded as his fist started to clench with his coin leaving an imprint in his hand.
Right?
Unsure on how to fully answer this with her knowing where this is going, she had to at least say something to Big Bad Harv.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, you bitch.
BB Harv yelled out as he kicked the nearby coffee table to the side. The man then picked up the nearby floor lamp and brought it closer to her face. Nora felt scared now with what he was going to do to her, but before she could do anything, he bellowed at her.
If anyone is going anywhere, then it's Mr. Goody-Good.
To prove the point, he slammed the lamp towards the window to get it to break with the broken light fixture aimed right back towards her.
And maybe you along with him.
Once that was said, BB Harv plunged the broken office appliance at her. She barely dodged out of the way, getting the broken appliance to leave a mark on the floor. Nora then ran towards her office door to get away from him, but BB Harv was quick enough to grab a hold of her arm before he started to twist it. She cried out in pain, and before anything could escalate, she snapped her fingers with her free hand by his ear to get BB Harv to go away and the DA to return. The results were instant as the body seized up as it twitched and spasmed like before while letting go of the coin in his hand to end up clattering on the ground. The man's hate-filled eyes briefly dilate to end up back at its normal, calm state. Once the man came around, he scanned the room and saw the damage that was caused.
Oh God. Did I do this?
Harvey asked out loud as he then looked at his doctor to see her nurse her arm.
Dr. Crest, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, I swear.
I know it wasn't your fault, Harvey. The doctor said as she sat back down to try and relax herself.
It seems that your other personality is getting stronger than I suspected. Hearing this, the DA clenched his head in frustration as he sat back down. Oh God, what am I going to do? I've always been able to suppress him before. Harvey.
Sai, I want you to admit yourself to the psychiatric ward at County General for a few days. Nora suggested, getting Harvey to look at her in shock.
But I can't, Nora. You know that I'm trying to get re-elected.
He said while trying to defend himself.
If the people find out about this, then it'll be hard to keep my position. I can't save them if I'm not the DA. But what about saving yourself, Harvey? If you can't at least do that, then you could possibly lose your position and other things in the process. Once hearing this, several things came through his mind.
His DA position, his friends, and even his sweet Grace. The doctor was right, he does need to save himself or else everything else will be ruined.
Say, I understand, but isn't there any other way, doctor?
Humming in thought, maybe if you cut back on your campaigning and intensified our sessions.
Then we might be able to dash perfect. He interrupted as it seemed like the best idea there is. I'll take that. You just set up the schedule and I'll work everything around them. Those are practically my main priority along with my campaigning. Just so long as this remains a secret.
Unbeknownst to either of them that right outside of the office door, Thorne's secretary was right there writing everything down on a little notepad of hers. As she wrote the last bit on her entry, she quietly left the hallway as fast as she could so no one would notice her.
Days later, campaign party.
The sounds of chatter were present in the room as everyone that helped support Harvey through this entire election was there. It was a very important evening as the votes were being tallied, and it was practically a nail-biting experience if Harvey gets to serve another term as DA or not.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Can I have your attention, please?
Carlos said into the microphone as everyone else in the room quieted down.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have gotten word that the latest count has shown that Harvey is receiving a mandate from the citizens of Gotham in a form of a landslide. If this keeps up, then we'll be seeing another term of Harvey as our district attorney.
When that was announced, everyone present was cheering in excitement as it was probably time to celebrate now. Hey now everyone. Don't celebrate just yet.
Harvey said out loud, but it was washed away with how loud everyone was cheering and clapping. With his fiancée in his arm, the two of them walked down from the stage as they wanted to mingle with the guests.
Congrats, Harvey.
Bruce said as he came up towards them with his hand extended.
The DA took it in his grasps and shook it with glee.
I must say that you seem very calm and collected as of late.
I told you that I can be able to handle myself. And it shows, Harvey. Naruto said as he came up to the engaged couple. Selena wasn't with him this evening since she had some other things to take care of that evening for a possible charity. Everything seems rather peaceful with you as of late.
Indeed, it has, ever since Harvey had taken his doctor's advice by doing the various sessions with her and cut back on his campaigning.
It helped him out immensely as things were turning out for the best, and it showed.
Not once has his other persona affected him in the slightest, and it made things all the easier during the remaining days of his campaign.
Glad to know that you have noticed.
The DA said to the silver-haired male.
I'm practically in such good spirits that I might just announce a certain wedding date this evening as a part of my acceptance speech.
When hearing this, Grace turned towards Harvey in shock as her face morphed into one out of joy.
Oh, Harvey. Do you mean it?
She hopefully asked as tears welled up in her eyes. She had been hoping that the two could finally get married after so long. The blonde's prayers were practically answered as her beloved fiancé had nodded at this, making her capture his lips with her own.
Then congratulations are in order, you two.
Naruto said as he greatly smiled at them. When the two separated from their joyful kiss, they smiled at their friend before Harvey responded to him.
I know.
It's been a long time since both of us had been engaged, and I kept on holding off our wedding date.
But now with this win, things will finally be solidified. Glad to hear about that, Harvey. And there has been something that I wanted to say to you, Bruce.
Which is?
The DA took in a deep breath before addressing his longtime friend.
For years you've helped me out as long as possible.
Supported me when I was first campaigning for my first term as the district attorney.
Helped Grace and I through our various challenges we had to deal with ever since we had first met. Nothing could ever repay you for what you've done. The playboy smiled at this, and he was genuinely touched.
Thank you, Harvey. Which is why I want to ask you one simple thing.
Harvey said in dramatic effect.
Will you do me the honor and be my best man?
Bruce was surprised to hear this while Naruto wasn't. The former shinobi had guessed on how this was going. The two of them have been friends for years, so it wouldn't be hard to realize that Harvey planned Bruce to be his best man for the wedding. Once regaining his composure, he chuckled a little and gave his answer.
Of course, I will.
Then I hope I get invited to the wedding. Naruto said, getting Grace to nod at the publisher.
You're definitely on the guest list, Naruto. Thanks. The former shinobi said as he, along with Bruce, started to walk away from the couple. They were going to kiss each other again when Carlos came up to them. Yes, what is it? You got a phone call, Harvey. The aide said, getting his boss to nod before turning back towards his fiancée. Hold those lips for me till I get back, Harvey said as he walked off towards his office. After stopping a few times to thank a few voters and supporters, he finally made it. He saw the phone off of the receiver to show that the phone was still on hold. Once in his hand, he spoke into it. Hello, Harvey Dent speaking. Hello, Harvey. A seemingly familiar voice said on the other end. This is Thorne. Rupert Thorne. Once having the confirmation, Harvey's face turned into a scowl. What do you want, you slime? Now. Is that any way to talk to someone that wants to offer you a deal? I'm not interested in any of your deals, Thorne. Oh well, I think you will be. Unless you would be fine with me chatting with Big Bad Harv. The moment that name came through the man's lips, the DA went into a state of shock as he must have stolen his file from Dr. Crest's office. Or perhaps would you like me to talk to the press first? Steeling his nerves and taking a few slight breaths, he answered back. What do you want? There's a limo waiting in the alley outside of your office building. Take it while you still have a career ahead of you, Thorne said before he ended the call. Darling? A voice called out from behind, making Harvey turn in surprise to see Grace at the door. Is something wrong? No, nothing is wrong, dear. I just need to see someone, he said to her as he needed to get this meeting over with. Would you mind seeing to our guests? But the returns are just coming in. I'm sorry, but I won't be long, he said as he made it around her to leave. This made her worried as she went to go after him, but he already made it back into the crowd of people. Harvey. What was in that phone call that made you this way? She thought before someone pumped into her. Sorry about that, Grace. Too many people around to make it hard to navigate through, Naruto said as he saw her worried face. Grace, is something wrong? Yes, it's Harvey. I think he's in trouble, she told him as she started to play with her necklace a little. Nervous habit with playing with a gift of hers from Harvey. I barely heard that something about a limo taking him somewhere. Hearing that from her made him drop everything he planned on doing for the evening. He excused himself while saying that he will find her fiancé while also calling the police. Once he did that in another room, the publisher shifted into his Vanitas attire and phased himself out of the building. As he was falling towards the ground below, he summoned Kazekage, his lance, into his hand to keep him in place. Now where are you? He muttered as he scanned the immediate area until his eyes saw Harvey exit out of the building and into the limo in question. Gotcha. With the vehicle in his sights, Vanitas willed his lance to rise higher into the air while he got his helmet to keep track of the limo. As it took off, so did the hero with going at moderate speeds so that he could stay within its range. With the twists and turns of the streets, Vanitas had little to no problem with following it. But when it was reaching towards the underpass, the hero saw something peculiar show up in his vision. Is that Batman? Why is he here? He curiously wondered as he saw the caped crusader jump on top of various vehicles to get closer to the limo where Harvey is riding in. Things started to change a little as the car Batman was on was going to go somewhere else, so he pulled out something and fired at the limo's bumper as it went through the underpass. Is that some sort of tracker? He asked to himself before shaking his head. Never mind that now, I need to keep focus on the limo. With that, he made Kazekage go faster to catch up with the vehicle to find out some answers. Chemical plant. After following for about 15 to 20 minutes of flying, Vanitas ended up seeing the limo drive into the grounds of a chemical plant. He didn't know who owned the place or what it's operating under, but he might learn soon enough. Once the vehicle parked,
the occupants got out to see some thuggish-looking people escort Harvey inside. When the coast was clear, the former shinobi landed on the ground with a mild thump as he ran close to the entrance before hugging its wall. He phased right through to end up on the other side as he quietly navigated his way through the building. He was rather surprised that no one was actually guarding the place, but he guessed that possibly the person behind all of this ordered all of her men to be wherever Harvey might end up in. Possibly to intimidate the DA if he could try to fight back or if the man refused in on what the person offered. It didn't matter now as Vanitas kept on moving forward while trying to stay in the shadows. It eventually led him to a room where large containers of chemicals were placed with a bridge sat in between them. He walked across it to see that on the other side of the room had an open door to an office where the lights were turned on. As Vanitas got closer, he started to hear a conversation go on. "Stealing someone's psychiatric file is pretty low thorn, even for a swine like you." "Well, that's Harvey, that's for sure." "But Rupert Thorne is here?" the hero thought as he walked towards the wall and hugged it. "And did Harvey say his psychiatric file?" In the other room, Rupert was sitting on the edge of his desk with most of his goons present along with his secretary sitting on the other end of the desk. Not too far from either of them sat Harvey as he glared holes inside of the smug man with his file on hand. But it does make such a fascinating read. The criminal overlord said to the DA in a mocking tone. "How in the hell did you acquire it? I doubt my doctor willingly gave it to you. And we practically stole it when that doc of yours wasn't there." One of the goons said before another one smacked him across the head. "Shut up, Mikey." "Sorry." Rupert just rolled his eyes at this and focused at the task at hand. It was quite interesting on what is jotted down in here. Like this, for example. It says that when Harvey was a little boy, he was bothered by a bully. Every day the bully would bug him after school until one day, little Harvey got so mad he slugged him one. "Oh," was the response the other goons gave out in a mocking tone. All the while Harvey was clenching his fists with his arms crossed. Of course, the bully ran away after that incident, which made little Harvey very proud for the first time. That was until he found out the bully was in the hospital. Rupert said as he turned towards the DA with the ever-present smile. Must have been one hell of a punch." Candace said as she filed her nails. Chuckles, that's what Harvey thought at the time. Except it turned out that the bully was at the hospital for appendicitis. The crime overlord said as he let out some more chuckles. But poor Harvey felt so guilty that he never showed his anger again. And that was the start of Big Bad Harv. As this went on, Harvey was starting to lose control, but he remained focused as he tried to control his breathing. "What the hell do you want, Thorne?" "Just a few favors from the DA's office, that's all." "In your dreams," was the immediate response. "Then, as a concerned citizen of this fair city, that I feel compelled to turn this into the press. I mean, it should be fair for the people of Gotham to know what kind of person, or should I say persons, that they elected." Once that was said, everyone else in the room started to mockingly laugh at him. Everyone staring at him like they practically have him by the ropes now, but in reality, they were adding fuel to the fire of Harvey's inner turmoil. The DA was starting to lose control of his anger as his eyes started to dilate with his vision starting to turn red. "So, what do you say, Harvey? Do we have a deal?" Thorne asked as he waited for the man's response. "There seems to be one problem with that, Rupert," the man said in an eerily calm voice. "And what would that be?" Chuckles, "that you're talking to the wrong Harvey," BB Harv announced before grabbing the crime boss by his jacket and surprisingly threw him across the room and into a group of the man's thugs. "And now I'm going to fucking kill you, you son of a bitch," he growled out as he walked towards the downed man. "Get him," one of the thugs said to get the others to go in for the attack. "And that's my cue," a voice called out as Vanitas ran inside of the room and punched a few of the thugs across their faces. BB Harv grabbed Thorne by the scruff of his shirt and was going to punch the living daylights out of the man, but Batman dropped down from the ceiling and grabbed the offending.
No dent. We need to get out of here.
The Bat said, but he was shrugged off with the amount of strength the man before him has.
Get away from me. The darker persona stated as he clocked Batman a good one before focusing back on the crime lord. Thorn is mine.
The commotion was ever present as the two heroes and BB Harv were up against several of Thorn's goons at a time,
dodging and weaving through them to take care of things.
Even though BB Harv had little to no fighting skill, his adrenaline-fueled rage was able to help out in terms of strength.
The darker persona had knocked the one last thug to the side as he saw Thorn run towards the file on the desk before retreating out of the room. Give me that file, Thorn.
He growled out as he was on hot pursuit. The two men were running across the bridge that separated the many chemicals in the room. Of course, one thug came out of the room and aimed his assault rifle at the possessed DA.
I'll get him, the thug said as he opened fired. Look out!
Batman cried out as he pushed the thug out of the way to get them to miss their mark, but the bullets still flew into the air. One of the bullets still hit the DA, but only on the leg to get him to stumble onto the ground and land onto his face. The other bullets hit the nearby voltage station, making it explode to end up disconnecting the wires connected to it. They soon fell down into the nearby vat of chemicals and things seemed to settle down.
That was until... Kaboom!
The blast propelled upwards to destroy part of the bridge where Harvey was at to send him high in the sky before slamming back down onto the stable part of the bridge.
Harvey!
Batman yelled out in shock as he ran towards his friend.
Vanitas heard the yell after he took care of the last thug in the room. He ran out to see what was going on and saw the DA on the ground with Batman hovering over him. No! 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 The masked Uzumaki thought as he ran to see his friend's condition. As he got there, we were there just in time to see Batman turn the man over to see.
Oh, dear God / Cammy.
Batman and Vanitas thought respectively as they saw their friend's condition. We need to get him to the hospital now. Vanitas yelled out.
Batman didn't need to be told that as he carefully picked up the injured DA and rushed him towards his Batmobile as fast and safely as he could. As this happened, Vanitas covered him to see if any other thug was going to come their way.
Gotham General Hospital. Dr. W. Will he be alright? Grace asked as she, Naruto and Bruce were in Harvey's hospital room.
The injured DA in question was lying in the bed asleep as bandages were wrapped around his head, part of his upper left torso and his entire left arm. There were several wires attached to Harvey to help monitor his heart. Luckily, there were no tubes attached to the man to regulate his breathing and eating, but there was an 4 drip attached to help out a little.
He'll pull through,
the doctor said as she checked on the man's charts. He's damn lucky that Batman got him here quickly so we could help stabilize him.
But what about his face and arm? Naruto asked, getting the doctor to place her attention towards him momentarily.
It seemed that similar to his world, Sakura would be a doctor in this one. She appeared to be in her late 20s to show her youthful appearance that could possibly turn heads. With her exotic looks made things like catching from her green eyes and oddly pink hair. Most people would think the hair was dyed, but time and time again she keeps telling people that it's all natural due to her odd genes of her father having red hair and her mother being blonde, that the two hair colors mixed to give her the pink hair.
Hence why she was called Sakura when she was born.
Sigh, that's a completely different matter, I'm afraid. Dr. Haruno said, getting the others to look at her oddly.
What do you mean? Bruce asked as he was generally curious on what the doctor has to say.
The burns and scars had damaged the skin significantly.
An odd combination of first, second and third degree burning.
We'll be sure to get a good plastic surgeon within the next few days to help fix up what we can along with skin grafts on the rest of the damaged skin.
Sakura stated, getting the others to nod.
Of course, the two heroes in the room basically had the same thought in mind. About the mental scars.
Next day.
It was another stormy day in Gotham as the doctors and nurses were working hard throughout the day. In one particular room with Harvey Dent residing in, Dr. Haruno and her nurse were there to check up on him. They were surprised to see him awake, but they took it in stride to see that he was a bit better. After giving him a decent meal or two for the day, the doctor was ready to take off the bandages to see what they'll be dealing with. Especially since she needs to replace the dirty ones with clean ones. Now you understand, Mr. Dent, that there will be a surgery to help repair most of the damage, correct?
Yes. He simply growled out.
Cough, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
When Sakura heard this voice, she seemed slightly startled but guessed that Harvey must have had his throat damaged in what accident he had and hasn't fully healed yet.
Good, since I already scheduled a surgeon.
She calmly said as she had cut off the last bit of the bandages to get them to fall off of his face, along with the medical eye patch to cover up his eye. The medical tray the nurse was carrying fell onto the ground as the nurse saw the gruesome sight before her before she let out a loud scream.
Kaori. What did I just say earlier? What's wrong, doctor?
Harvey asked as he was worried that something seemed wrong.
There's nothing to worry about, sir. Sakura tried to say to keep her patient calm, but it seemed he started to get suddenly frustrated. Then give me a mirror. He growled out.
Mr. Dent, I suggest you give me a fucking mirror now. Harvey seemed too impatient for a response as he pulled off the medical wires off of him and rushed towards the nearby mirror on the far side of the room. Just outside of Harvey's room, Grace was currently wearing a raincoat with an umbrella in one hand while the other hand a bouquet of flowers along with their first edition copy of Naruto's Loveless. She had come by today after getting off of work to see her beloved fiancé in the hospital. She didn't know if her Harvey was awake or not due to her dropping her cellular phone earlier into a puddle of water, making it no longer work. Either way, Grace was coming over to read some loveless passages to him to see if he would wake up with the book that both of them loved dearly. She was nearing his room when she heard a loud scream.
Rahahaha.
Someone yelled out before the sounds of crashing and breaking could be heard. Grace was wondering who that was until the door to Harvey's room was roughly opened as a man in a medical gown ran out of it. She then realized who it was and felt happy on seeing her fiancé awake. But that happiness was quickly replaced by worry as she saw his state of duress with him hunched over and seemingly covering his face.
Harvey?
She called out, making him flinch.
What's wrong, honey?
There was no response, making the blonde come closer to her beloved fiancé.
Please look at me, Harvey.
He hesitantly complied to the request as he turned his face around. The moment that he did, a flash of lightning filled the darkened sky to reveal the horrid part of his left face to her.
Harvey,
she said as she was in a state of complete shock at what she just saw. As a result, she fainted right on the spot. The sounds of footsteps came closer to her unconscious form before a bandaged-covered arm came towards her and caressed her face a little.
I'm so sorry you had to see it.
Harvey said to her as he got up and walked away from her before coming to a stop and looked back.
Goodbye, Grace.
And just like that, Harvey went to the nearby window, opened it and climbed out of it. The sounds of the thunder covered his escape as doctors and security personnel came rushing to the hallway.
They were soon greeted with the sight of Grace's unconscious body lying on the floor before checking Harvey's destroyed hospital room with the unconscious bodies of Dr. Sakura Haruno and her nurse Kaori.
3 weeks later. It was rather quiet in the darkened streets of Gotham with only very little sounds being present.
The quiet atmosphere was soon broken as a car was driving through.
It kept going on like this for a few more moments before it came to a complete stop once it pulled to the side of the road.
This is it, boss.
The driver said as he looked into the rearview mirror.
Rupert Thorne's booking joint.
The shadowy figure just looked on ahead as the man contemplated on what to do next.
The next thing the man did was reach into his coat pocket to pull out a double-sided coin.
It seemed different from the rest as one side seemed rather normal with its normal face. But on the other side was rather charred and scratched out.
Good heads. We leave them alone. Bad heads. We hit 'em hard.
Was all he said, getting the driver and the man riding shotgun to nod their heads in agreement. The man flipped the coin up in the confined space before it landed back down into the palm of his hand before bringing it down onto his other hand. Once opening it back up, the man saw the result.
Bad heads it is then.
Inside of the booking joint, things were pretty normal as to what one would see inside of an establishment like this. Seeing races or matches going on through the television screens, drinking and laughing at the various tables, while on the far side of the room were people handling the bets and money.
Everything seemed rather peaceful on what was going on until kaboom!
The front door to the business was blown wide open due to a small explosive attached to the door. The man guarding the door was knocked back with splinters of the door were all over the place. Anyone else that was nearby were coughing from the smoke and were ducked down for their own safety.
Everybody down. And nobody move.
Two voices called out before firing their assault rifles into the air, getting everyone to do what they said. As the smoke was cleared, everyone saw who was the cause of this, being a pair of twins in light brown suits with one half seemingly darker than the other half. They were fair-skinned and straight, shoulder-length gray hair with a light blue tint to them, with long bangs covering each different eye of their bangs being polar opposite from the other. They both had dark markings around their eyes along with odd marks around their mouths, giving them an androgynous appearance. Both of the twins looked around to see if there was anyone going to resist or any other form of security, but they found none.
"Coast is clear, boss. You can come in now,"
both twins said after the other getting man of the hour to walk on into the establishment, which caused several people to gasp at the sight of him. He was a fairly tall man with combed black hair with light gray eyes. But that was what seemed normal with the man on the right side of his body until you would focus on the other. With the burnt red skin with his gaping eye without an eyelid, making people wonder how it's still in there, along with showing most of his teeth. His suit was custom tailored, being white and pristine with the sleeve rolled up with the black button-up shirt underneath on the right side. But when looking at the right showed that it was black with various parts of it scorched, and the left sleeve seemed to be ripped off along the elbow to show the red skin of the arm.
Don't bother to do anything at all, people.
So don't touch the dials or switches at all. For the next 5 minutes, Two-Face is in control. The unidentified man announced with an assault rifle in his hand.
"Now go get the money."
"Right, boss," the twins said as they went towards the back of the room where the money was being kept. Once over there, one of the twins started emptying out the cash registers and drawers of anything of value as the other went towards the safe to crack it open. Then one of the twins noticed something at the corner of his eye.
"Hey boss.
Look at this."
"Yes. What is it, Yukon?"
Two-Face said as he got closer while keeping an eye on most of the people present. Said twin lifted up a wooden tray and presented it to his boss. "There must be a couple $100 silver here."
"Then bring it."
The scarred man growled out, getting the twin to nod and placed the tray to the side before he kept doing what he was doing before. As this was going on, the other twin was finally able to crack the safe and opened it up before emptying its contents. That was until he spotted an expensive-looking ring on one of the man's hands. "Well, looky here," the twin said as he slipped it off of the man's finger.
"I'll take that." Taking jewelry wasn't a part of the plan, Sakan.
Two-Face said as he glared at said twin. "You got to flip for it if you want that ring." The scarred man pulled out his coin and flipped it into the air before catching it. Once opening up his palm, he saw that it was the good heads.
"Leave the ring."
"But boss dash," I said, "leave it." The man yelled out, getting the twin to comply and place the ring on the ground by the man's body. It wasn't long until the three men got everything they came for and the twins ran out of the door to get the car started. Just as Two-Face was leaving the establishment, he turned back around to announce something.
"Now before I go, I want you all to give Rupert Thorne a message."
He then brought his assault rifle up and started firing at the TV monitors to end up destroying them in the process. "That I'm taking him down."
Two-Face growled out before going to the getaway car, and he and the twins drove off into the night. Rupert Thorne's office. Bam God. Bam fucking. Bam damn it. Bam. Those were the sounds present in the office as the crime overlord was cursing up a storm. He had gotten the latest reports of his establishments earlier that he had been hit again by Harvey Dent, or what he now calls himself Two-Face. How much did he take this time? Thorne growled out. 200,000, sir. Candace simply stated. But I thought we got rid of this guy? One of the thugs said, getting the assistant to look at him with a slight glare. If you forgot, we actually created him that night 3 weeks back. It has been indeed that long, as Rupert was glaring at the newspaper with the headline Two-Face's Wave of Armed Robbery. He was completely pissed on what the former DA was doing to him as of late. From hitting his nightclubs and gambling rings, that it ended up costing him a fortune, along with it being utterly humiliating. Two-Face Harvey kept on hitting various establishments he owned in this city, and things were starting to come downhill for him. It got to the point that he decided to seek out help from his fellow crime lords in the city. But none of them would even budge a finger due to the man they work alongside with. The man who practically controls a lot of their actions as their allied group leader, Kurama Otsutsuki. He came onto the scene a decade ago after killing off Gato and absorbing his group and assets over in the Asian territories before moving to Gotham a year or so later. At first, he was not that noticeable, but things started to escalate as he changed things drastically towards his liking. In the end, Kurama had gained complete control of drug trafficking in Gotham and had eliminated human trafficking as a whole. This made him a threat towards several competitions trying to muscle their way in and had sought to eliminate him, but that was their downfall. The red-haired drug lord had taken care of those problems personally just to make a statement, "Don't fuck with him." Then one day, he had sought out the various crime lords in Gotham and offered them an alliance so that things could be easier to handle. The smaller ones had joined and were eventually absorbed into Kurama's network. Reason being was that those smaller groups couldn't handle too much pressure, and it was easier for them to report to someone higher than them. Eventually he came and offered the deal to the major crime lords of Gotham, Rupert Thorne, Roman Siones, Carmine Falcone, Sal Maroni and Oswald Cobblepot, that he won't absorb their groups but just have a good relationship with each of them. Thorne and Siones had turned down the deal and the feral crime lord had left them be while Falcone and Cobblepot had joined in on the allied force. As for Maroni, well, he felt right out insulted and did an assassination attempt on his life along with his two snake-themed girlfriends. Well, that caused a bit of a problem and Kurama brought down his entire fury on the man and his followers. Suffice to say, he truly lived up to his statement. For good compensation, he had let the other major crime lords of Gotham take whatever they wanted from the late Maroni group. Everyone was fine with it and things went on with their separate ways since it was shown as a sign of goodwill. Now one might wonder, why bring up Kurama into the explanation? Well, Thorne had contacted Kurama the previous week due to Two-Face making things difficult for Rupert. He wanted to discuss the offer the crime lord offered back then so the redhead could help him out. But the feral man had said the offer went off the table the moment Thorne and Siones had refused to join the group. He tried to get into the man's good graces, but the man refused, especially with the heat coming down on the man as of late among other things. So, with that, Rupert was practically on his own. With the stress getting to him, Rupert rubbed his chest in remembrance of this event is just adding onto the pile of crap heap he had been dealing with ever since his brother Matthew left his employ. After his brother helped get rid of the tumor near his heart with the help of his old schoolmate Leslie Tompkins, the man left and was placed into protective custody with his newly registered medical license. Without his brother being the crime doctor, morale for his group dropped along with problems with health and medical were getting too risky in the end. 3 weeks have been long enough, the crime lord said as he stabbed a knife into the newspaper a few times before settling down. Spread the word that I'm putting out a contract. 1 million. He said before pausing for a brief moment. Actually, make that $2 million. One for each face for the man who brings me Two-Face. Unknown location.
The sounds of running and panting could be heard in the darkness as Harvey started to weave through the streets of Gotham. Harvey! A voice called out, getting the DA to run faster before realizing he is now standing on a rickety bridge. He went back around to get off of the bridge until he saw a shadowy figure coming closer to him. No! Stay back! Harvey said in worry. The figure kept on walking forward until it came under the nearby lamppost to reveal that it was Batman with a truly worried look on his face. Harvey, please. Let me help you. The masked hero pleaded, only for the man on the bridge to scoff at him. You? Help me? Harvey said as he walked closer with an accusing finger pointed straight at him. You saw what was going on. You knew that something was terribly wrong with me. But I thought you were my friend, my closest ally here in Gotham. You should have helped me more. Yet you didn't. He yelled out as he covered his face during most of the accusations before revealing his scarred face towards the hero. Now look at me. But I tried, Harvey. I truly have. Bruce said to his oldest friend. He then heard the sound of rope snapping, making the hero realize what's going to happen. He ran towards the rickety bridge, but it seemed to be farther away than he realized or was kept in place. Bruce pushed himself to his limits to hopefully make it in time, but the bridge gave out, letting his friend fall. Harvey! Why couldn't you save me? The man cried out as he fell into the fiery pit below. Once coming towards the ledge, Bruce peered down below to hopefully see his friend down there. The only thing he saw was something that truly scared him the most, making him collapse onto his knees as he felt truly young and helpless, like he was 8 years old again. No. No. He said at the sight before him, seeing his parents lying down on the ground with their eyes staring right back at him. Why couldn't you save us, son? His father, Thomas Wayne, said to him in disappointment. No. Bruce cried out as he woke up from his sleep in the Batcave. With the intensity and volume of the yell echoed throughout the cave, making all of the bats wake up and flutter all about. He tried to control his breathing as he placed his hand on his sweaty brow. Get it together, Bruce. It was just a dream. The playboy said to himself before his eyes met the various documents laid out on the Bat computer's desktop from various psychology newspapers, books, and even copied reports of Dr. Harleen Quinzel that he acquired from Arkham. The last one was a little difficult, with him breaking into her office and taking photos of her evaluations on Pamela Isley and Margaret Sorrow/Magpie from her locked cabinet, but it was something he has done before. He just needed to know everything he could about multiple personalities to try and understand his friend more. So, what are you dreaming about this time, Harvey? Bruce asked in slight curiosity, as he finally controlled his breathing to a good pace. Peaceful dreams. And nightmares all at once? Could be possible with his two personas. Especially with what Dr. Quinzel has stated in her notes. But whatever the case may be, I hope you sleep well, my friend. No matter what you have become, I will save you. I swear. He then gazed at the clock nearby and saw that it was time for him to get ready for the day and head to his morning job. Getting up, he stretched about and made his way towards his bedroom with the previous thoughts still present in his mind. It was going to be one of those days, he figured. Morning, Grace Lamont's apartment. The sounds of sobbing and moaning could be heard in the residence as Naruto was present to help console his friend. Ever since Harvey's disappearance from the hospital and his crime wave 3 weeks ago, the blonde lawyer has been a total wreck. Naruto, with some occasional visits from Selena, have checked up on her so that she wouldn't do anything rash. I know that this has been difficult, Grace, but you shouldn't give up hope. How can I when Harvey hasn't bothered to see me or doing all of these things? She said as she continued to sob with her reddened eyes. He didn't know what to say exactly since she was right. For all this time, Naruto had been racking his brain over with everything, but nothing could work for a good response. He just sat there for her to have a good friend to hold on to. She didn't have that many social or work friends and her relatives lived on the other side of the country, so it was hard for her to get better support. Just keep holding on to what you have, Grace, and things might pull through to the end. The publisher said as he broke the hug and grabbed her a few more tissues. I need to get going now, Grace. Like I asked before, if anything comes up, please let me know, okay? Sniff. Sniff, okay. The blonde weakly said as Naruto gave her one last hug before exiting the apartment. She got up on her feet to at least stretch her legs as she walked over to the far side of the room. There she picked up a framed photo of both her and Harvey on the day he proposed to her. It was practically one of the happiest days of her life, with her being so much in love with him. Knock knock. Who could that be? Grace thought as she put down the picture frame back down and walked towards the door. Once opening it, she was greeted with the sight of a redhead police officer with some dark-haired woman in a detective-looking attire with the trench coat and business suit and glasses. Yes. May I help you? Grace Lamont. I'm Detective Leopold. The identified detective stated. It's about your fiancé. I would like to talk more, but I would like to do so outside of prying ears. Sniff right. Of course. Come on in. The lawyer gestured as she ushered the two to come in. May I offer you some tea or some water? As kind of an offer, Miss Lamont, but we hopefully don't want to take up too much time. The female detective said as she sat down on the couch while the officer stood not too far away. So, mind telling me what this is all about? Of course. The woman said as she threw various details pertaining to the scarred man and Rupert Thorne. Most were a bit detailed, while others quite simple, but Grace was getting the gist of it all. So, we would like to get to Harvey before Thorne does, since he won't have much of a chance. I wish I could help, but I haven't seen or heard from him since that terrible day at the hospital. So, I don't know where he is. I understand that, Miss Lamont, but it is possible that he might come around at some point and contact you. Detective Leopold said before pulling out a device from her pocket. If he ever does, activate this beeper and we'll trace the signal wherever you are. Grace didn't know what to do at this point, but what choice did she have in the matter at this point? Her response wasn't immediate, but she hesitantly held out her hand and grabbed a hold of the device, making the detective smile at the action. Then it's all in your hands, Miss Lamont. So, for now, get some rest, ma'am. The woman said as she and her partner left the grieving lawyer in her apartment. Once outside of the building, the police officer and detective got into their car and slowly drove off. At that time, the officer pulled off his hat and partial disguise to reveal some scars present as the detective pulled down her hair and removed her glasses. So, what makes you so sure that he'll show up, Candace? The thuggish-looking man questioned as the now identified Candace gave him a smirk. Oh, trust me, men tend to always come back to the ones they really care about. Unknown location. 64-8. 64-9. 65,000. Harvey Two-Face spoke out as he was organizing the money piles for both him and the twins. One of them, sometimes hard to tell for the scarred man with them switching outfits and parting their hair differently at times, reached out to grab a pile. To which the scarred man intercepted by grasping the hand before giving it a firm squeeze. Don't touch anything until I tell you to. Sorry, boss. The twin said as the man let go, making the gray-haired twin rub his wrist to ease the pain. So you two have always been greedy, haven't you, Sakan and Yukon? Even when I prosecuted you two as DA. Harvey said as he remembered taking on their case a few years back. Sakan and Yukon were troublemaking kids that tended to steal off of the street and from various stores. The two were sent to juvenile hall for a year or so until they were released. When Harvey had gotten out of the hospital, he came across them as they were trying to find work. He offered them to work for him and explained the benefits of doing this. They agreed since they were a bit desperate for money and they wanted to get back at Thorne for screwing them over at a previous time. Once Harvey pulled out his wallet to put most of his pile away, his eyes caught the glimpse of a photo with him and Grace. Just seeing her face, even from a photo, made his one good eye well up with tears while the other just dripped on down right away without an eyelid. On the side, the twins looked at their boss with slight worry as they already guessed what was going through the scarred man's head. Two-Face broke out of his concentration as the corner of his eye caught onto them looking at him. He placed the wallet onto the table and gave them a dirty scowl. "What the hell are you looking at?" "Sorry, boss. But if you miss her so much, why don't you go see her?" The twins spoke to finish each part of the sentence. The two of them nodded at this as they could see their boss at least be happy and get off their case at times. "We could even bring her over if you want." Harvey contemplated on this as he looked back onto the photo before reaching into his jacket to pull out his coin. "Good heads, she comes. Bad heads, we leave her be," he thought as the coin was flipped into the air and landed onto the table with the bad heads up. "Forget it, you two. We got other matters to attend to." Seeing this, both of them sighed before one of them spoke out. "What would that be, boss?" "I've decided that it's time to finish off Thorn once and for all." "Really? How? You gonna finally kill the bastard?" Their response was a shake of the head that it wasn't what he had thought. Even though it would have been a quicker solution. "No. Let's just say that I'll do to him what he did to me." "Even the whole burn thing, boss?" Possibly. If I'm lucky." Naruto's office. Sigh, what a day. What a day. The publisher said while stretching his arms. It's been a decent so far with him going over the various documents for the day. From usual magazine workings, progress reports on remodeling the Metropolis branch location, to possible novels that need to be approved before sent to editing. Nothing unusual or interesting has come up recently for work asides from one of his authors wanting to get his latest book out. What made it interesting was it being American McGee's rendition of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland novels. Naruto read the entire first book and he thought it was an interesting take in a darker tone than from the original works. Very much so that the former shinobi approved it and had it sent to the editor to have the book hit shelves within the next few months. Another thing that came up was when one Masamune Shiro came from Japan to see him. Reason being was the writer was hoping to make a deal with the former shinobi for an English publication of several series of his. From Black Magic, Appleseed, to Ghost in the Shell. It was appealing on the idea with Naruto buying some of the original translations from overseas and he'll need to discuss the offer with some of his staff if they would like to work on the project. Naruto looked towards the clock and noticed that it was near lunchtime. He rubbed his stomach with slight anticipation as he pulled out his lunchbox. Normally the Uzumaki wouldn't be that excited for a home-cooked meal, even if it's one of his own home-cooked ones, but this one was made by Selena this morning. Before both of them left for work this morning, she gave him a boxed lunch she made without him noticing. Then again, it would explain why she wasn't in the shower with him this morning. It was rather cute to see the thief give it to him with a slight blush on her face. Saying that she wanted to pay him back for all of the home-cooked lunches he made for her and wanted to start making him ones. With the past dinners Selena made in their home dates, Naruto wondered what he'd get for a lunch. So, before he could even open up the box, a voice called out from behind him, scaring the living shit out of him. My oh my. A familiar voice said, getting Naruto to fall out of his seat with a slight yelp. A boxed lunch, from Selena no less. How cute. Getting up from his placement on the floor, the former shinobi glared daggers into the Bijou hybrid. What are you doing here, Kurama? Wouldn't you normally make an unannounced appointment with Jillian before coming on by for a chat of some sort? Oh, I would, but I wanted to have slight pleasure of scaring you. Kurama said with a cocky smirk that made Naruto's eyebrow start twitching. As for me being here, wanted to discuss a few things. Which would be what exactly? For one, congrats on getting back your wind element after a decade. The redhead stated as he sat down on the couch several away from the office desk. Once sitting down, he lifted up his hand and a small swirl of fire came about before it died down to reveal a bag of Big Belly Burger. He turned to the side and saw Naruto give him a quizzical look, making the hybrid roll his eyes. "What? I eat." The publisher only threw his hands up in the air before replying to him. "I wasn't judging really. Yeah, well, it's one of the only places that gives me enough calories and is delicious to help me go through a third of the day," Kurama said as he took a bite out of a few fries. "Most of the time, I just 3 orders of the stuff and be fine for the day." Chuckles, "Seems that you found your ramen, Kurama." "Shut up. Well, getting back on topic, thanks," Naruto said as he popped open his box lunch to see the nice little spread. Looks good. Must not have been easy given what reports I saw on how you got that back." The former blonde nodded as he took his first bite out of the meal and mentally sighed in bliss before speaking. Gulp, "Falling several hundred feet in the air and getting desperate will do that. Sai reminded me of the time when Jiraiya threw me off of that cliff and had to summon Gamabunta in the end. Grown, not a fun experience." Gulp, cough, "No shit, Sherlock. But I got this out of it," Naruto said as he held out his hand and summoned Kazekage into his grasp to get Kurama to look at quizzically. "Huh? Interesting lance you got there," the hybrid said as he got up from the seat on the couch to come closer for an inspection. He didn't touch it, but his eyes looked through every detail and felt the power coming from it. "So how much training have you worked on this thing?" "Well, aside from riding this puppy, I've been looking up to staff and lance fighting styles and try to work from there. Obviously can't try to find someone to teach me or else things might seem suspicious. So I've been going through instincts on how I should fight at least." Nodding at this, Kurama ushered Naruto to continue with his explanation as he went back to his seat and eating his meal. "As for the wind-based stuff, had to go to the mountain ranges to see what I could do exactly. For my training so far, I was able to find out that I could summon more of these, up to 6 in total to be exact. Don't know why that number, but not complaining. Been able to experiment on some wind-based techniques that I remember from back in the home reality. I'm sensing a sigh, but I found out that when I tried using those powers when I don't have the weapon out, it doesn't show up at all. No matter how hard I tried. Even tried using what I know so far with my scythe without having it out and nothing came out at all." Getting that bit of the explanation made Kurama hum in thought on the implications. "Possibly your toys don't like you using their powers if you don't let them out to play. They could, but it'll be a long road till you could maybe use them without having your toys out." Hearing this made Naruto scratch his head on this bit of realization that his former tenant might have hit a dead center on that one. If he does unlock other weapons, he'll need to start figuring out a better way on his fighting style when trying to switch them out during certain fights down the road. Even with all of the training he has been doing with his weapons and powers, he still has a long way to go. "I guess you're right, Kurama," the Uzumaki said as he dispersed his lance. "So aside from talking about my powers, what did you want to discuss?" "About what's going on with Harvey Two-Face Dent." As the hybrid said this, Naruto tensed a little bit before getting back into a relaxed mood. "Why do you want to talk about Harvey, Kurama?" "From what I have noticed is that he's targeting various fronts of Rupert Thorne's businesses," Kurama stated as he ate some more fries before holding out his hand to motion of counting things off. Club 22, Gemini's Jewelers, Two's Company and several other places. Some people might speculate that Dent has a thing for robbing places with a relation of 2 in the title, like his next stop being the Second National Band, but he's only targeting Thorne specifically. Wanting to hurt the man hard where it hurts the most, his wallet. Naruto surmised, getting the redhead to nod. Yup, and I'm actually glad that Thorne is getting humiliated in such a way. Naruto raised a brow at this and couldn't help but ask. Why? Well, Rupert has been trying to slink his way into my businesses and thought I wouldn't notice. Even with him asking if I could help him out from one crime lord to another from what Two-Face has been doing lately. But in fact, I'm actually enjoying how this is turning out so far. Chuckles Harvey is practically doing me a favor of ruining Thorn in the way he is doing. So, I thought I would want to owe the man a favor or two down the road. Especially since he's one of your friends Naruto. And he is still a friend of mine Kurama. Deep inside his scarred form is still the friend I've known since I moved here to Gotham. Kurama didn't say anything right away as he finished the last of his meal before speaking. Well, you better keep your guard up since he might not be the man you know anymore. It'll make him more dangerous to you if you let it down. The crime lord simply stated as he got up from his seat. Don't want him to end up like the duck-butted asshole of an Uchiha we both despise and have him stab you through the chest. As he said this, Kurama went up in a pillar of fire before disappearing from the room. Keeping his eyes on his former tenant's placement, Naruto kept on thinking about what was just spoken to him as he was eating the rest of his meal. He hoped that Kurama was wrong to keep his damaged friend at arm's length or more so that he won't be hurt again, but he is probably right. But aside from that, Naruto realized from what the crime lord said that Thorn has been humiliated for a while now and his businesses have been hit hard. Sooner or later Harvey will run out of places to hit to the point that he'll want to get rid of Thorn for good. And as a trained man of the law, the only way to really get rid of a crime lord is through cold hard evidence. So with nothing else to do for now, until Jillian comes in with more things for Naruto to take care of, he went onto his computer and started looking up details about Rupert Thorn on where Harvey will finish things off for good. Night, office of Thorn's attorney. Small spots of light were shown through a broken office door late at night. When one would look inside, the lights were revealed to be a pair of individuals with flashlights in their hands. One would ask on what they are doing exactly, and to simply put it, they were searching through the office for something as they were going through the attorney's desk and filing cabinets. Hey boss. Yes, Yukon. A voice growled out to reveal Two-Face, even as a flashlight was pointed towards his face on accident. Take a look at this. I think it's Rupert Thorn's confidential file. Yukon stated, waving the file in his hand. Let me see that. Harvey said as he was handed the file. Once opening it up for confirmation, his eyes were scanning through the pages as he was growing an ever-present smile. For years I've been trying to subpoena all of this. Money laundering, payoffs, blackmail, and it's all here. Two-Face said as he started to laugh a bit in joy. Now I'll destroy Thorn with his file like he destroyed mine. Well, that's great and all boss, but we should probably get out of here. Yukon said as he made his way towards the door, only for it to be blocked by someone else. Shit. It's Batman. The twin pulled out his gun and was ready to fire, but the hero of Gotham grabbed a hold of it and tossed it out of the way. Yukon then lunged at the bat, but he dodged out of the way, getting the gray-haired man to hit the wall instead. You're coming with me, Harvey. Batman said as he approached the scarred lawyer. I just want to help you. Help me? The former DA surprisingly asked before growling out at the man. But you don't even know me. I know that you have friends, Harvey. Friends that love and care about you. Well, Harvey's friends are no friends of mine. Two-Face said as he grabbed a hold of the table lamp and was ready to bash Batman's skull in. But what about Grace? Batman asked, getting Two-Face to pause in his advancement. Gee, Grace. Harvey said as he placed the lamp back down on the table. What do you know about Grace? I know that she still loves you, Harvey. She keeps your picture and every day she waits and prays for you to come back to her. The disguised billionaire said to him. There is so much that some of her closest friends can do to help, but only you can help put things at ease for her. All that she wants now is just wanting you back. It seemed that things were pulling through for the bat, that he might be able to get his friend to comply. But that came crashing down as someone came into the room. Hey, what's taking you two so long? Sakan asked as he peered inside and saw Batman standing in front of his boss. Batman turned around on instinct to take care of the other twin, but was hit from behind by his scarred friend to get him to tumble onto the ground. Come on. Let's get out of here. Two-Face said as he ran out of the office with the file on hand while the twins were ahead of him.
Harvey! Come back here! The bat called out and grabbed a hold of his coat pocket. Feeling the snag on his coat, Two-Face turned around and snarled at him. Let go of me! In response, he kicked the hero in the chest to send him into the nearby janitorial cart. Upon impact, Batman had been hit on the same spot as the kick to get him to get knocked out in the process. Seeing as the hero was down for the count, Harvey ran off to catch up towards the twins to make their getaway. It's been about 10 or so minutes later when Vanitas came down through the hallway when he came across the prone form of Batman on the ground. Along the way, he had seen the one attorney's office in shambles and realized that he came by too late to stop Harvey from what he was planning on doing. So once coming to the Bat's form, he tried to nudge him awake. Hey Bats, you okay? Vanitas asked as he hoped for a response, but didn't get one. Come on Bats, you better wake up, he said as he tried to shake him a bit. If you don't wake up then, I'll paint your bat bike pink. No response as well on this. Okay then. Seems that I'll have to do this the hard way. It's going to hurt me more than it hurts you, Vanitas said as he popped the knuckles in his hand. So, it's time to wake up Batsy. Slap. Rise and shine. Slap. Wake up. Slap. Up and at M. Slap. Fine then. Slap. Be a brooding asshole. Slap. See what I care. Slap. I'm not doing this to replace you for the fucking team. Slap. I just feel like it. Slap. Not like you deserve it. Slap. Slap. So. Slap. Why? Slap. Won't. Slap. You. Slap. Wake. Slap. Up. As one last bitch slap was about to come on down to the Bat's cheek, the appendage was grabbed by said man's hand as he scowled at the man hovering over him. Why are you slapping me? Batman yelled out, making Vanitas phase his hand out of the hero's grip. I was just trying to wake you up. I was halfway through. The Bat growled out. Well, why didn't you say anything? Vanitas innocently asked. You kept on slapping me. Geez, you don't need to shout, you know. Batman tried to get up but groaned out in response. He brought his hand to the side to feel for where the pain was coming from and found out that he possibly has a cracked rib or two. Hey, you shouldn't get up with your injuries, man, the masked Uzumaki said, getting a dirty look in response. What? Like you have room to talk with you giving me slaps across the face. Oh, will you just let that go already? The man said as he wanted to change the subject. Seems I came in too late seeing as the office was wrecked. Hearing this made Batman remember what happened earlier and quickly turned to Vanitas and spoke. Have you seen Two-Face? No, I'm sorry on that, Bats. Batman responds well to that as he started walking down the hallway so that he could get back to his motorcycle to keep on searching for Harvey. On the way over there, he looked down into his hand and opened it up to see a match case with the 2 of hearts printed on it. In a brief moment, Vanitas saw the case as well, making him guess that he got it from either of the twins or Harvey himself. On the streets. The getaway car containing Sakan, Yukon and Two-Face Dent was calmly going down the streets of Gotham so that nothing could be drawn towards them. Whether it being the police, citizens, Batman or Vanitas. Eventually the group stopped at a red light when the small silence was broken by one of the twins. Wait until the police get a load of this stuff, Sakan said as he rode shotgun while Yukon drove the vehicle. It's even got his Cayman Island and Swiss bank accounts in here. Nice. As this little chatter was going on, Harvey was blankly looking around through the passenger window when his eyes glanced upon something. Something that made his eyes slowly widen and start to well up a little in tears with his left eye already shredded them, a wedding shop. He didn't know what was going on, but he saw himself and Grace replace the mannequins on display in a wedding ceremony scene.
envisioning himself and his beloved fiancée saying their vows and placing their wedding bands into the other's hands before sealing things with a kiss. The little scene playing through his head started to end as the car was starting to move forward to turn around the corner. Shaking out of his stupor, Harvey soon told Yukon to pull the car over.
Following his boss' sudden order, the driver did so as the scarred lawyer pulled out his coin and flipped it into the air. Grace Lamont's apartment. Ring 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 ring.
Grace was in the kitchen getting something to drink when the phone started to go off. She wasn't expecting any calls that she could think of, and it's just been a tiresome day so far, or rather a tiresome few weeks. Crying throughout most days and nights, having her mind feel depleted after a long day at work with both her work tasks and worries plaguing it. She just wished that things could be over and her worries put to rest.
Ring 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 ring. I'm coming,
she said towards the phone as she walked over towards it before picking it up to answer the call.
Hello? Grace Lamont speaking.
There was no indefinite response on the line as the silence seemed to pass for several moments. With how exhausted and tired she was for the day, Grace seemed to get a little upset at this and spoke out.
If this is a wrong number, then I'm sorry you dialed it wrong. But if this is a prank call, then I'm not happy on what you're doing,
she said as she was going to hang up the phone when a voice spoke from the other end.
Grace?
This made her pause as the voice was really familiar to her. Her eyes started to well up in tears as her breath felt caught up in her throat along with her hands seemingly shook a little.
The only thing that she could say didn't filter through her mind as it came out instinctively. H. Harvey? Is that you?
Yes, Grace.
It's me.
Once getting the confirmation, her legs gave out as she fell onto the nearby couch for support.
Just hearing his voice made her heart quake in joy.
As a result, she started to sob a little as she couldn't contain it any longer, with her tears starting to finally shed.
Grace, he said in a sorrowed tone, I'm sorry that I haven't seen you. Harvey. Where are you?
Grace spoke out as she wanted to see him so badly. To at least have him hold her in comfort and for her to be with him again.
Please. I want to see you, honey. I miss you so much. I want to see you too, dear.
Harvey said as Grace could hear it cracking a little, making her know that was truly upset as well.
No. Not want. I need to see you. Yes, yes.
Yes, of course.
She cried out in joy.
Where, Harvey, and I'll come on over as soon as I can.
Look out of your window, Grace,
he said, getting her to comply on the slight request. Once pulling the curtain back a little, she saw a car parked on the empty street.
The men in the car will bring you to me.
They won't lay a hand on you, but I swear if they do dash.
I understand what you're saying, Harvey, and I'm sure they won't.
She spoke into the phone as her eyes soon landed upon the device Detective Leopold gave to her earlier this morning. The blonde lawyer picked it up and didn't know what to do with it now, but she needed to say something.
Harvey. No matter what happens, you know that I always love you, right?
I'll see you soon, Grace, was all that was said before the line went dead. Once hanging up the phone, she immediately grabbed her coat and went out of the door as she activated the device before placing it in her purse. With nothing else but seeing her beloved fiancé, nothing else seemed to come to the forefront of her mind. But of course, she would end up forgetting the promise she had made to a certain publisher this morning for her to call him if anything came up.
Meanwhile, Rupert Thorne's office. He did what?
Rupert Thorne yelled out as he was starting to go red in the face in anger. Without anything else being spoken, the crime lord started pulling on the phone connection to the wall until it broke free and threw the device to the other side of the room.
Damn that son of a bitch. Cool your jets, boss,
one of the thugs said as he tried to get his boss to calm down.
I don't want to hear it,
Thorne said as he slammed his fists onto the table.
If he brings those files to the police, then I'm completely ruined. We need to stop him now.
But how, boss, we don't even know where the guy is, another thug said before a sound started to fill the air.
Beep 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 beep.
What the hell is that? a thug said as he pulled out his gun on instinct.
That would be my insurance policy,
Candace said as she pulled out her device from her purse.
What insurance policy? Her boss asked as she gave him an ever-present smirk on her lips. Wild Deuce Club. It was rather odd that it started to rain suddenly during the drive over to Harvey's residence, but it didn't matter to Grace as she kept her mind focused on seeing him after so long. Once pulling to the side of the road, the twins got out of the car and opened her door with an umbrella on hand. Thank you, Yukon. I'm Sakan, he's Yukon, the twin said as his brother went to the door of the abandoned establishment and unlocked the door. I'm sorry,
she apologized, but the twin waved her off.
It's fine, Miss Lamont.
We do this all the time to confuse everyone, so we're used to it, Sakan said as he helped get the blonde inside.
Right this way, ma'am. Harvey's been waiting. Thank you too for bringing me here.
You're welcome, they both said as they got inside, out of the rain. Once inside from the dry rain, Yukon had then locked the door behind them to be sure that no one would get in that easily.
He's right in there, ma'am. We can take your belongings if you want,
both of them said to her, which she started to take off her coat and handed it to one of the twins. Once passing through the doors, she was greeted with an odd sight, with one half of the large room being carefully groomed, neat and organized, while the other is violently destroyed with the dark atmosphere of destroyed floorboards, carpet and tables. After scanning the room, she wondered where her beloved Harvey was located.
It wasn't long as she saw the door at the far side of the room open up, showing Harvey walking through it.
Upon closer inspection, Grace saw that part of his face was covered up with a sheet with an eye hole cut out for him to see her.
Hello, Grace,
he said to her with his kind, gentle voice.
Harvey,
she said as she slowly walked up to him with a growing smile on her face. She was going to hug him, but when she was within arm's length he stopped her.
What's wrong?
I'm not Harvey anymore, Grace.
It's Two-Face now,
he said, getting her to shake off the odd growling voice coming from him.
No, Harvey, it's not. Your name is Harvey Dent, the man that I love.
A man that is a big part of my world,
Grace said to him.
He shook his head towards her in response to this. I'm sorry to say this, but this is my world now, Two-Face stated as he gestured her the oddly designed room. A world of order and chaos.
Just like me.
Harvey, she said to him with a look that made her think he was crazy, what happened to your mind?
Your feelings? You used to listen to your feelings.
Nothing immediate was said as the man she still loves pulled out a coin from his pocket and started to flip it in the air.
This is what I listen to now, Chance. Chance is everything I listen to now, Grace. Whether you are born or not.
Whether you live or die.
Whether you're good or bad,
he said to her before he stopped playing with his coin.
It's all arbitrary. That's complete and utter nonsense, Harvey,
she said to him with a raised voice.
Was it chance that made you district attorney? Was it chance that we had met? Was it chance that made you fall in love with me and me with you?
Gee, Grace, please.
Just take control of your life, Harvey. You don't need a coin.
She interrupted him as she grabbed his scarred hand and brought it to her face. He trembled in the process, but kept it in.
You don't need this mask either. Grace, don't,
he said to her, making her stop from taking off the sheet.
I don't want you to see. Harvey, you know you never had to hide anything from me,
she told him as she brought her hand to the sheet and slowly took it off, to reveal his damaged face to her.
I love you, Harvey Dent, no matter what has happened to you.
Just hearing all of that made him start to shed tears as he started to choke and sob a little. He even started to smile as he brought his hands around her face.
Grace. I. Bang, boss.
One of the twins called out with the other following him into the room.
What is it?
Harvey yelled out as he was going to berate him for ruining this moment.
You two need to go now.
The other twin said before he was shot from behind and stumbled onto the ground holding his leg with his brother doing the same.
Fuck you, you son of a bitch.
One of the twins said before a thug came on through the door and kicked both of the twins' heads to knock them out.
Oh, shut up.
The man said before he ushered the other thugs to enter the room and surrounded the couple.
So, this is where you have been hiding, Dent. Thorn said as he calmly walked into the room. We finally meet at last.
Face to face to face. Grace didn't know what was going on and how Rupert Thorne found them. Her eyes went around in confusion before her eyes landed upon a familiar face.
You? Hello, Miss Lamont.
Candace said as she walked closer to the blonde.
Grace? What's going on? Two-Face asked, seeing his love's face drain of all color.
You did well to lead us right to him, Grace. The secretary said as she grabbed Grace's purse and pulled out the tracking device.
Grace? Harvey questioned in shock as her eyes were welling up in tears with her shaking like a leaf.
You should know that she thought she was leading the police here. Thorne said with a growing smile on his face. She thought that she could save you.
Harvey. I'm so sorry. You have to believe me.
Grace said to him as she hugged him to try and make him know that she didn't mean it. In response, Two-Face broke the embrace and turned her back to her, making her silently cry on the action. So much on control.
Hug Grace.
He said to her as Thorne actioned for his goons to search the place for what he came for. It took a while as each thug went through every nook and cranny to find the file, even went through the safe kept in the one large room, but it was nowhere in sight.
Can't find that file of yours, boss.
One thug said as he placed the wooden tray of silver dollars onto the nearby table.
Oh, I know that file is here all right.
Thorne said as he glared at the man that has ruined him these past weeks.
Now where is it? Not a chance, asshole.
The scarred man growled out. Thorne still glared at him before turning his attention towards the blonde woman in the room.
No. Don't you dare.
He tried to reach her, but the thugs came up from behind and grabbed the man by the arms to keep him in place.
Get your hands off of me. Chuckles my oh my.
Rupert said as he came up to the scared blonde as she tried to back away from the crime lord.
You've got such a pretty face. Would hate to see it all messed up.
Get your disgusting hands off of her.
Harvey yelled out as he tried to get free. Then give me the file, Dent.
Nothing was said as Harvey Two-Face looked at the love of his life before hanging his head downwards and motioned that he'll comply. The thugs let go of him before the scarred man went to the roulette table and opened up a hidden compartment to retrieve the file in question.
Here's your stinking file.
Harvey said as he handed it towards the crime lord. The man opened it up and started to inspect it to see if it was the real deal or not.
This is genuine. Even has my lawyer's handwriting. Hard to possibly copy that.
Thorne stated as he closed the file.
Get rid of them.
But you said Harvey growled out as several guns were quickly aimed towards him with Grace pushed towards the side. Chuckles, you'd think that I would let you two live after all of the mess you caused me, Dent.
No, I'm going to have you both killed.
I suggest the ugly boyfriend should die first. One of the thugs said as he came closer to the scarred man. He was going to fire, but a figure dropped from above and kicked him onto the ground to render him unconscious.
Not today, assholes.
Vanitas said as he dashed towards the nearby thug. At this sudden action, several thugs aimed their weapons at the arrived hero only for smoke pellets to explode underneath them and a figure came from it to attack them.
Shit, it's Batman.
One thug said before he was punched by said man.
This is the last time you messed with me, Batman.
Thorne said as he grabbed the fallen assault rifle and aimed it towards the hero. He was about to open fire, but Two-Face came from behind and kicked his leg in to end up having the crime lord shoot the hanging chandelier. With the hanging support damaged, it came crashing down and collapsed onto the crime lord, capturing him in its metal embrace. With the down Two-Face, several thugs tried to dogpile the scarred man, but Vanitas and Batman pulled them out of the way and threw them into the other thugs, before making quick work with them. Once Harvey got up from his place on the floor, he decided to join in on the fighting to take care of Thorne's men for some displaced aggression. During the scuffle, Batman started to hold onto his injured side as his ribs were starting to get to him. That momentary distraction costed him, with a thug knocking him onto the ground and was about to shoot him if it wasn't for Vanitas' intervention on knocking the weapon out of the man's hand before knocking him out. "Thanks. Thanks," the Bat said as Vanitas held out a hand for him to grab a hold of. "No problem," the masked Uzumaki simply said before going to another one of the thugs. As this was going on, Harvey was dodging and evading several punches and kicks from several thugs. Without him knowing, Candace was coming up from behind with a vase in her hands to knock the scarred man out. She would have succeeded if someone didn't pull her hair from behind. "You fucking bitch," Grace said as she pulled the dark-haired woman to the side. "You tricked me by playing with my feelings." Nothing else was said as Grace kicked the woman from behind to send her crashing to the nearby wall to drop the vase overhead. The piece of pottery crashed onto her head, and with the impact, it ended up knocking her out. "Damn, that felt good," she said before seeing Batman holding his side and went to him to help support the hero. It didn't take much longer for the remaining thugs to be subdued. When everything had calmed down, Two-Face grabbed a hold of one of the thugs' weapons and aimed it towards the trapped Thorne. "And no. Please don't," the downed crime lord pleaded as he didn't want to die this way. "Shut up," the scarred man yelled out with the weapon still aimed towards him. "Don't do this, Harvey," pleaded the masked publisher as Grace and Batman looked onward to see what was going on. "What are you doing?" the blonde lawyer asked. "Taking control of my life," Harvey said as he glared daggers at Rupert Thorne. "He took away my life, so I'm taking away his. Let the law handle this, Harvey," Batman said, getting Two-Face to look at him with a snarl. "The law?" he said as he pulled out his damaged coin. "This is the only law I follow. The law of averages. The great equalizer." As the scarred man said this, he flipped the coin into the air to do his next course of action on Thorne's fate. When it came tumbling down, Batman saw the nearby wooden tray of silver dollars and threw the container to mix those coins with Two-Face's. "No! What have you done?" Two-Face cried out as the coins laid on the ground. "My coin! Where is my coin? Where is it? I can't decide without it," he said as he was running his hands through the coins in hopes of finding it while screaming out in the process. As this went on, Grace had to turn her head away from the event happening before her as she didn't want to see her love be this way. Harvey was crying out in frustration during this whole process, thus getting Grace to let go of Batman to come towards her love. The hero stumbled a little, but Vanitas came up and grabbed his side to help support him. "It's all right now, Harvey," Grace said to the scarred man as she brought him into a hug. I'm here. It wasn't long until the police started to arrive due to Vanitas calling them ahead when he got to the building earlier. Thorne and his men were in handcuffs and were escorted into the police vans. The ambulances showed up as well to help take Sakan and Yukon to the hospital with their wrists handcuffed to the stretchers so they won't escape custody. Soon Harvey was escorted out of the building with Grace holding one of his arms with a doctor in an Arkham Asylum uniform to get him into another car to head towards the mental institution. Poor Harvey. So filled up with anger for all these years. Gordon said as he watched the scene before him. Do you two think that there is any hope? Where there's hope, there's love, Commissioner. Vanitas said as Batman walked towards the nearby fountain and held out a coin in his hand. But not just any coin, Harvey's coin. The Dark Knight flipped it into the air before he spoke out. But a little bit of luck wouldn't hurt. The bat-themed hero turned away as the coin landed face up in the water as both heroes silently prayed that their friend will be saved. Unknown location. Searchlights were present in the sky as they moved across the various surfaces in the darkened night, roaming around and spotting anything out of the ordinary aside from the various guards doing their patrols. After one of the searchlights went past a certain point, a figure then ran out from the shadows to get to the next point of coverage. It zipped through cover to cover in the open area before getting inside of the compound, before knocking out one of the guards and taking his keys to get further into the building. Watching for any guard and security camera present, the mysterious figure kept on moving towards his objective. The person eventually made it to the security room and looked for what he was looking for before typing several commands to turn off the security camera in front of one particular cell. Before leaving the room, he grabbed a device from the nearby table before going to his destination. Once left the room, he quickly made his way towards his destination to see the man in the cell loudly snoring. "Seems that after you left, you let yourself go," the person outside of the cell said, getting the snoring to stop. "Oh, I haven't let myself go. It's just a force of habit of snoring in front of guards checking up on me. Trying to pull a Ferris Bueller here without a mannequin to buy out the act," the person said as he got up from the cot before seeing the person he was speaking with. "Oh. It's you, monkey butt. I'm not talking about the snoring habit, you idiot. I'm talking about you breaking out of here," the now revealed monkey-themed assassin stated, making the person in the cell roll his eyes. "No shit, Sherlock. I knew what you were talking about. Then why haven't you broken out before?" "Well, this collar on me for starters," the man said as he gestured the collar around his neck. "If you forgot, a lot of my skills were based around my powers. Then why not use your other skills acquired from the League? This place is so tight that it could have rivaled a tight virgin asshole, you prick," the man said with a slight growl towards Silver Monkey. "During the times I've been let out of the cell to do my recess time, there were guards everywhere with those fucking remotes of them just in case if I tried to escape. Even watching me and strip searching me whenever I get out of a certain room if I tried to smuggle something out." This made the assassin to hum at this before chuckling a little bit. "Seems that this place is good enough to actually do that now. Sai, tell me about it." "Missed those days where most prisons didn't have the power dampening crap so that it'll make things easier to escape. Well, tonight's your lucky night. I'm here to get you out," Silver Monkey said as he unlocked the cell, getting the person inside to raise an eyebrow at him. "Why the fuck would you want to do that? Since I left the League, no one has bothered to come and get me. Figured that Roz didn't want to deal with me anymore and hoped I get killed off on my own." "Oh, trust me, he still has that mindset." "Then why bust me out, monkey nuts?" Ignoring the usual jib against him, due to him being used to the man for several years, he opened up the cell before entering it. "I have a proposition for you." "Which would be what exactly?" "Have you heard about the new hero in Gotham? That Vanitas character I heard on the news?" "Yeah, I have," the person said before growing a cocky smirk. "You have the hots for him or something?" "No. He's the reason why I'm getting you out, and before you ask, no. Roz or Shiva doesn't know I'm doing this." "Okay. I'm confused. I want to get back at him for what he did on my last assignment. Both him and Batman. Normally I would be fine taking care of the Bat, but with that meta-human in Gotham will make things difficult. So I'm here to get you to help even out the playing field." "And what would I get if I help you out on this?" the man asked, getting Silver Monkey to chuckle a little. "Why, getting my help on killing the man that helped get you in here, of course," Carrot Alfred said, getting the man to flinch at the man before snarling a little. "He humiliated you on your attempt to kill him for glory and getting more contracts. A simple celebrity that somehow bested a trained meta-assassin of the League. So if you help me on getting rid of Batman and Vanitas, then I'll help you get rid of Naruto Uzumaki." Hearing this, the man in question stepped closer to reveal himself as a familiar blonde-haired assassin with months of facial growth on his face with a shaggier hair. Silver Monkey then pulled out the device on his hand and aimed it towards the man to deactivate the power dampeners. Once they were fully deactivated, the man started to chuckle a little as his power coursed through his system after these past months.
You got yourself a deal, Silver Monkey.
Minato Hiraishi Namikaze said with a growing smirk coming from his lips and exited the cell so both would leave the prison. If the blonde assassin had bothered to look back at the man who got him out, he would have seen a faint green glow coming from the mask's eye holes before they faded away in the darkness.
That's it for this reading.
Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
Looking forward to having you on board again.